Friday practice. Ralf Schumacher revisits the scene of his 2004 accident, prompting a tyre safety fracas. The German misses the race. In qualifying, Toyota and Jarno Trulli respond.
Toyota have pole. They've gone out for glory here with Jarno Trulli.
Since that action on the track, meetings have dominated the speedway. The worry, tyres, Bernie Ecclestone in an animated conversation with Flavio Briatore, the Renault boss. Michelin supplying 7 of the teams, saying they're worried about their tyres on this super high-speed circuit. They're worried the tyres are not strong enough to last the full distance. Safety a paramount concern to Ron Dennis at McLaren and everyone else about their drivers. Consternation for Bernie Ecclestone, so important for him that F1 maintains its foothold here in the United States. A smile against the odds from Bernie. Welcome to Indy. Confusion reigns here at the moment. This is definitely not Formula One's finest hour. As things stand, I can't tell you whether there's going to be a Grand Prix or not. 7 of those teams, that's 14 cars, use those Michelin runners. The company, after that Ralf Schumacher accident, asked for a special chicane to be installed to slow the cars down. The governing body refused. Just now, 9 of the 10 teams agreed they would race, that is everybody except Ferrari, if the chicane was installed. The chicane has not been built yet, and there are no signs of it being built. Those are the bullet points. Let's join Ted Kravitz.
Well, thank you, Jim. Here we are down at the Toyota. Toyota are on pole position for the start of the US Grand Prix, but it all centres around their tyres. They were the first to discover on Friday that there was a manufacturing fault with the tyre. In the tyre, there is a sidewall, that's the side of the tyre, and where it meets the top of the tyre, the tread, there is a weakness, there's a manufacturing fault. So, Toyota had 2 tyre failures. It later emerged on Friday that every other one of the Michelin teams had also had tyres that were near failing. So clearly it's a dangerous situation. These guys are going round the last corner and it's incredibly fast, and the loadings, Jim, are such that it would just be unsafe for the drivers. The tyre would overheat and collapse, and it might mean that the drivers could, well, they could lose their legs if they crash into the wall. We saw what happened with Ralf Schumacher. So the tyres simply are not safe. Michelin did tests on it overnight. The tests showed that the tyres will only do 10 or 15 laps before they collapse. It's an incredible situation. So the options were to either slow down that very quick banked corner that's giving the tyres such trouble by using a chicane, or change tyres. The FIA, the sports governing body, said absolutely not. You can't change tyres. After all, this formula is a one-tyre formula for the whole of the race. So the changing tyres was out of the question. In any case, Michelin weren't sure if the new tyres they brought along would have done the job. So it's all come down to this, Jim. Do they build a chicane in the fastest corner on this track to slow the cars down or not? And believe it or not, we are 55 minutes before the start of the race, and still we don't know what's going to happen.
Thank you very much indeed, Ted. And it takes them around about 40 minutes to build a chicane. The bosses emerged from that team meeting a few moments ago. Let's have a word with Paul Stoddard of Minardi.
Basically, the situation is that the teams will only go out of the pit lane, or 9 of the 10 teams will only go out of the pit lane if there's a chicane put in before the start of the race, and we're obviously very short on time now. Let's hope that it prevails, because what's more important, if ever there was a time for Formula One to come together as a sport and leave its bloody politics behind, this is the time. So let's hope we have a race here this afternoon.
But at the moment the FIA have said that they won't install a chicane.
Well, the FIA are not installing the chicane. The circuit, I believe, with a bit of help from the GPDA and certain teams, are preparing a chicane now. It's up to the FIA what they do. As I said before, if ever there's a time for sport to prevail over politics, it's right now. The whole world's eyes are upon us. We want to see a race here this afternoon, not a political disaster.
So 9 teams have said that's the solution they want. Can you tell us?
The group of 9, as it has been throughout the year, have agreed to race this afternoon. For the sake, whether it's championship counting or not is another issue, whether there's protests, whether there's penalties is another issue. But the group of 9 have said that for the sake of the American people and Formula One as a sport at large, that we will put on a show this afternoon. To be able to do that, there needs to be, in the case of the Michelin runners, a chicane installed before the banking. That is happening now as we speak, and provided that is in place when the pit lane opens, then we will be having a race this afternoon.
So Ferrari said no?
At the moment, we'll have to wait and see what Ferrari does.
But at the moment they're not.
At the moment, 9 teams' principals were in there, and 9 teams have agreed to have a race this afternoon. You'll have to ask Ferrari yourselves on their position.
Were Bridgestone people cooperative in that as well?
Bridgestone weren't in the meeting, so we've still got to deal with that as well. But since Bridgestone don't have a problem, whether there's a chicane or not a chicane should have no effect on the Bridgestone
So Paul, which
position.
tyres are you using?
We're using our normal tyres that are on our car fitted now.
And the Michelin ones?
The Michelin runners, I believe, will be using their tyres, but that really is a question for Michelin. I think the issue has been over the speeds with which you arrive into the last corner and what you carry forward onto the straight. And clearly, if there's a chicane to slow that down, then the problem should go away.
There is still no work being done on that chicane. Mark, you've raced over here. You know the American public well. How will they respond to this fiasco?
Well, they're all here looking for entertainment, and the US sports market really is about entertainment. At this moment in time, there's nothing certainly going to be going on entertainment-wise on the circuit. We've got to get something put in place, and most of the teams do agree, and that's a chicane, and at this moment, there's not being done.
It's always a struggle for Formula One to get a foothold in the United States. They've moved to all sorts of different venues. How big a blow is this for F1 over here?
It's a massive blow, and also you've got to consider most of the sponsors what are down this pit lane are US parent companies. You know, they're going to be looking at us now and saying, what is really going on?
Well, we're all saying that as well. And what about the drivers? I mean, there's a great reputation. The drivers, they get on with the job come what may. But surely this has to affect all those fellas there.
All of these guys here now, it's all about, look, we want to go out there and race. That's what we're here for. That's what we've been brought up for, and that's what we've always wanted to do as our career. But they want to do it in an environment where it's going to be safe. And nobody at this point, from the Michelin point of view, can guarantee their safety.
And you know a little bit, just finally from you for the moment, Mark, about building chicanes. How tricky is that? You can't just pop one down and go on you go, fellas. The drivers don't know anything about it, where it is, where the brake points are, all that.
Exactly that. It has to be minimum width requirements. It's got to be good line of sight. There's so much that can be done, and it's all to be done in the right way. And, you know, the cars have not got gearing for this. They haven't got the data mapping for this. Everything goes out the window.
Yeah, OK. Well, the story developing all the time. As soon as we know anything, you will as well. The group of 9 then, 9 teams, everybody that is, except Ferrari. Let's get their view.
Luca, can you tell us what Ferrari's position is on the situation?
Ferrari is just preparing for the race. We just need for less than 45 minutes to go to the grid. And that's it. We are working on this. We are focused on this 100%. Nothing more. And then I've heard a lot of things. I've heard a lot of rumors. But it's up to FIA to answer to those rumors. That's it.
Would you be happy with racing around a modified circuit with this chicane put in?
I don't think that it's not a matter to be happy or not happy. We've seen a letter from FIA this morning, and then now, if the other teams are asking again, it's up to FIA to decide.
Ferrari on Bridgestone tyres. Of course, they're quite relaxed about the whole situation. More meetings going on as we speak to you. I believe Ted Kravitz might be around there.
Yes, indeed, Jim. And these are live pictures. This is the room where it's all been happening. Office and the office of Tony George, who is the promoter of the US Grand Prix. So as you can see in here, the back of this gentleman in the blue shirt, that's Gunther Steiner, the technical director of Red Bull. And you can see Frank Williams is in there, and Flavio Briatore and Bernie Ecclestone. Ron Dennis also in there, really bossing the meeting. Ron has been extremely keen that Formula One comes out of this in the best way it possibly can, although that seems unlikely at the moment. But still, last-minute live pictures of last-minute negotiations going on down here.
It's going to be very hard for Formula One to recover from this, because without wishing to put anybody off out there, even if we do get a race, it's going to be a tainted United States Grand Prix.
Well, it's definitely going to leave a bad taste in their mouths. But, you know, at the end of the day, if we can get the race underway and we can get some great racing, I think by the end of all of this, they will still come back and sit their backside in seats and watch this sport, because it is the pinnacle of motorsport.
But it's a very hard sell this weekend here in Indianapolis that the people, and particularly it's Father's Day here today, and they've not exactly been flocking to the circuit. They're not exactly rushing to get to see Formula One.
No, they don't understand it, and that is an issue, because now we've confused them even more, and we've got to do something about that.
Yeah. Well, we're wondering how the drivers are feeling about the race here and about all that's going on. Let's have a word with David Coulthard.
The spectator care about the race. Which like doing everything to
the
race.
Situation?
Well, it appears to be a little bit unclear as I stand here before you as to whether we're going racing or not. The Michelin position, and I'm sure you've been told this already, is that we can't race without a chicane. As I understand it, Ferrari are against that. So the teams clearly want to go and put on a show, because can you imagine, with all those crowds there, with all the fans of Formula One around the world, then we need to go racing. So there's a bit of a stalemate, as I understand it, but I've been out for 15 minutes in the driver's parade. So.
No, they're still talking about it. They have until half an hour before the start of the race. I mean, on a safety grounds, would you be happy racing on the tyres you've got without a chicane?
If Michelin say it's safe, yeah, of course I am. You know, I have trust in them. You know, there's lots of high-speed circuits we race on, and it's their call at the end of the day. You know, we can't take a decision on a technical issue regarding tyres without consulting them. So if they say it's okay, then we would. But clearly they've said it's not. Clearly they've said that all the cars would need to be withdrawn, and the only solution is to put a chicane. So it comes down to whether a compromise can be found to allow that to happen. And of course there's very solid arguments to say nothing should be changed, because you know, the circuit was known before we came. But also I think there's a good argument to say that on safety grounds it should be changed, and maybe all the Bridgestone runners go to the front so they get the advantage, and the Michelin guys line up in their grid order as they qualified, and see what happens from there. Another thing that's been suggested is it's a non-championship race if Ferrari aren't in it, and we would go. All the Michelin runners have agreed to go ahead with that.
F1's not making itself look particularly good today, is it?
It's like everything in this business. You know, pressure is brought to bear as the timeline gets closer. You know, this could have been resolved last night, because we all knew the situation regarding tyres, but it wasn't. And people are positioning and manoeuvring and negotiating, and then, you know, come 1 o'clock, there'll have to be some cars out there on the grid, otherwise it's over for Formula One in America.
And we understand there will be cars out there on the grid at 1 o'clock, 7 o'clock your time back home. The feeling is there will be a race. The feeling is there will not be any chicane built. And the feeling is all the Michelin runners will abort the race early on. That is unconfirmed. That is the latest news as I'm hearing it. Jackie, is that how you see things? Is that what you've been hearing?
Well, I don't know everything that's going on, and that's one of the problems. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there also, but I think there's got to be compromise. It's a situation which is crisis management, really. Crisis management's usually done by experts, and I don't think there's a lot of experts in that field. So I believe that we've got to somehow or other compromise, whether it be Ferrari, whether it be Bridgestone, whether it be the other teams. Perhaps the only way to do it is to have a chicane put up in a very short time, even if it meant delaying the race for a short time. There's 120,000 people out there, and I think there's got to be compromise.
You know all about selling this sport over here. How damaging is this episode for F1 stateside?
I think as long as there's a race that takes place...
But a meaningful race, Jackie.
Well, I think it will be a meaningful race, because if they have a chicane in place, then I think it takes out the tyre problem that currently exists. And the moment that that's done, I think you're going to see these drivers drive just like they would normally drive.
You're a huge campaigner about the safety side of this sport. You're carrying a few scars from your involvement in it many years ago. Is it going to be a safe United States Grand Prix?
Yes, I think it will. I don't think that safety can be compromised, least of all in the United States of America with their liable laws and everything that goes with it. So all of that's been taken into consideration. I understand that Michelin have said that their tyres will be safe if the chicane is put in. And under those extreme circumstances, I think the other teams must compromise and allow the chicane to be introduced. It would be far too big an issue for Formula One long term not to have a race here, in my opinion.
OK, just finally, before you go, we've had pictures of you going around Silverstone with Jenson Button promoting the British Grand Prix. We saw that in Canada last weekend. I thought I might bring a grin to your face. And things looking pretty good for 100,000 people here at Indy. And, well, we will keep you informed. Back with us at Gasoline Alley. You've got to spare a thought for these guys, these drivers. They don't know what they're going to be facing in 40 minutes' time. They don't know if they're going to be racing, if they're not. Will there be a chicane? Will there be a race at all? Will the Michelin runners pull out after 10 laps? Who knows? Ted, the best of luck with that one. I think we can have another word with David Coulthard down there, who's doing very well to keep us up to date with the happenings around the drivers' scene. And David Coulthard is with Louise Goodman.
Yeah, David, just having a word with Gunther Steiner, one of the team bosses. What's the latest, David?
Well, the latest is that we get in the car ready to go out, but if there is no chicane, then we will not go out, is the word that I've been given. So, you know, what we don't know at this moment is, are they building a chicane?
You're not getting any information about whether that chicane's going into place?
No, at the moment, no. It all seems a bit confusing. So, given the time, we've got 5 minutes before or just over 5 minutes before the pit lane opens. So, a bit disappointing, really.
I'm no construction agent, but surely there is not time to build a chicane now, is there?
Well, you know, these guys can do pretty amazing things. It's only a couple of bits of plastic bolted to the ground. So if someone's got a couple of drills, then you just drill it off and bolt it in there.
So as it stands at the moment, what will you do? Go out, do one exploratory lap and come straight back in and park it?
That is the word from Michelin. We're not racing with the banking, so we cannot go against their wishes.
Thanks, David. Let's go and catch up with Ted.
Yes, well, down here with Martin Whitmarsh from McLaren. Martin, are your cars actually going to bother going to the grid?
So I believe that we should have a chicane before that last corner.
But if it's not going to be built, you're not going to go out. What kind of US Grand Prix are we going to have? Just a load of Bridgestone runners, Ferraris, Jordans, Minardis?
Well, this is Formula One. Things get taken to the wire, and we'll see what happens in the course of the next half hour, whether something can be resolved or not. We hope it can. We're here, we want to race. All of the Michelin teams have said, look, you know, we accept that we potentially should be penalised. We've accepted, for instance, that we put the Ferraris on the front row, we'll put the Minardis and the Jordans in front of us, and we'll race behind them. But you know, we must have a chicane because we've got to operate safely.
Thank you very much, Martin.
I reckon we've gone beyond the wire at the moment, to be quite honest. 35 minutes to go before the official start of the United States Grand Prix. We're going to try and show you the area where they want those chicanes to be built. No movement about that. You're going to have some very rapid builders to get that up in time for the Grand Prix. But before we do that, let's just have a lap of Indy as it stands with Kimi Räikkönen.
Indianapolis Motor Speedway, just under 4.2 kilometres, that's 2.6 miles, 73 laps in total, 13 turns. We're on board with front row sitter Kimi Räikkönen in the McLaren. Just listen to this engine singing away towards the end of the straight. 19,000 revs, 210 miles an hour, down to just 80 for the turn in. You have to give a little bit on the way in because it tightens through the exit. 3 sweeps through the right-hander, up to 150, braking and turning at the same time. What struck me about this lap is just how early he can hit the throttle pedal. Turn 6 already. As soon as he's got the nose in, listen, straight on the throttle pedal and very hard. 7, if you go wide, you hit the rumble strips, it will trigger the traction control and slow the acceleration. Diagonal the straight to the right-hand side, ready for turn 8, 180 miles an hour, just under the bridge. There is a braking point for a very slippery corner. Squirt the throttle, straight back on the brakes, hook the wheel on the inside of the curb to pull the car around. Same for turn 10. Now you've got to get ready for 11, bring it over to the left-hand side. It's slippery on the way in, but it's crucial to carry good speed through the exit, pick up the throttle as early as you can, point the nose up the 9-degree banking, and just sit and wait for the revs to rise. He's in 6th gear now. He doesn't want to pull top until he comes off that banking. Right now, maximum acceleration. As soon as he's cleared the line, off the throttle to save fuel for the race.
You see, looking at that, I mean, it just underlines it's got the longest straight in Formula One, over 200 miles an hour for over 20 seconds in that tight infield section. But safety has to be the paramount thing here.
Yeah, it's all about self-preservation for the drivers. Nobody wants to go out there and have an accident because of a failure, which they've got a good indication will happen. The basics of all of this, Jim, is that the rear left tyre is just building up too much load and too much heat on the shoulder, and they've had a couple of failures, and also there's been a number of other tyres which have been seen to have failed, but not at that, at that degree of exploding, and that's going to be a massive problem. We start having cars going off in the wall and coming into the path of other cars. Yeah, bedlam.
Okay, now let's just have a quick word before we look at that corner with Mark Webber. Here he is with Louise.
Yeah, Mark stood at the back of the Williams garage with his overalls on. You look like you're going ready to race.
Yeah, I'm going to get in the car as soon as I finish here. We're not going to go out unless the chicane is put there, but Sam just wants to be ready just in case it's all systems is normal, but yeah, I think it's not normal. We know that, but we have to do everything we can to be ready.
How dangerous is that corner?
The corner's not dangerous at all when everything's working fine, but it's like saying that we're not sure if the rear wing is going to survive the Grand Prix. Tyres are very important to the drivers. If it's okay if we get warning and we get a chance to feel if something's happening, but when they just go that quickly, that's very, very dangerous for the driver. It's the worst thing that can probably fail, along with brakes.
How much have the drivers been involved, and has your opinion been sought on all of these safety issues, or has it really been left to your technical people and team principals?
Yeah, I mean, on a technical side, Michelin can only give us the advice. It's an absolute no-brainer that if tyres are not safe enough, then clearly the drivers are at massive risk. So we can say, they know our concerns. We don't have to echo them and say, we don't tell them how to cook their eggs. They know they're in trouble, and it's up to them, the technical guys, to sort out what is suitable, whether it's a chicane that helps the loads of the tyres, X, Y and Z, to get us through the Grand Prix.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Meetings are still going on. There is still no sign of that chicane being built at all. It's the side of the tyres, isn't it, that seem to be more at risk, seem to be vulnerable, Mark?
It's the sidewall and the shoulder of the tyre where the heat gets built up, and it's the way that the pressure gets built up. And, it's a big problem. Even if they have a safety car situation, if there is an incident, and then those guys have got to build the pressure back up on those tyres. We saw it with Michael Schumacher earlier in the season. If it builds up too quickly, you've still got the consequence of losing a tyre and exploding.
Let's just have a look at the crucial area where they want that chicane. This is Kimi's lap, and we'll do our best to slow it down for you. Go on, Mark.
Oh, basically, I mean, this is the situation what we'd be looking at, to put a chicane in between these corners here, just to slow the cars right down so they don't approach that corner of 9 degrees of banking with so much load on it. And then it just takes a little bit of the pressure away, takes some of that heat dispersion away. In this case, you see the car builds up onto the banking. It's not that great. It's only 9 degrees. And as Mark Webber said, it's not a difficult corner. It's quite an easy corner, in fact, in a race car. There's no big problems. But warning is what he's on about, and warning is what you do not get when a tyre lets go. This is where the pressure and the load builds up. The heat disperses to the outside shoulder of the tyre. And then if you have a failure here, like we saw with Ralf Schumacher, it's a big catastrophe.
Yeah, just going back to what David Coulthard said, it's no big deal to build a chicane. I mean, it's a bit more serious than that, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't want DIY skills from DC, that's for sure. It's not 10 minutes and a drill, no way.
And just one other thing, they have resurfaced the track here, and I get the impression that that's been a bit abrasive on the tyres as well.
It's been a problem because what they've done, they've diamond cut the surface on the banking, and that's been done because the Indy cars were struggling for grip. It's given more grip, more wear, more pressure, more heat. Everything's gone the wrong way for a Formula One car with more downforce.
More driver reaction now. Pedro de la Rosa, McLaren's third driver. He's with Ted.
Well, Jim, yes, but we're looking at the eyes of Kimi Räikkönen. What must be going through his mind? Things were just starting to come right for McLaren. He was on a winning streak, won in Canada last time out, and now this. At least it's not Ferrari he's in the battle with, it's another Michelin runner. So if Kimi doesn't race and scores no points today, then of course Alonso won't race and score any points either. So a bit of a strange position for the championship. But let's have a word with Pedro de la Rosa. Pedro, you drove this track on Friday, arguably when the tyre pressures were low, when it was at its most dangerous.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's obviously it would be very dangerous to go out. And after my running on Friday, we were really lucky to have a problem on the first session and not being able to complete the whole mileage. So otherwise we potentially would have had a problem. That's the reason. I mean, people must understand that all this is done for safety reasons. And if Michelin consider not being safe to go out, we won't go out. And as far as I'm concerned, 9 out of 10 teams,
8 teams now because...
Yeah, well, it's a Jordan and they're on the Bridgestone, so they've gone to the grid at least.
Yes, but the second question is the Michelin teams won't go out unless there's a chicane on the last corner, full stop.
Just one question. How could Michelin make a mistake like this?
Well, I'm not sure really, I'm not designing the tyres. All I say is that we don't have any bank corners in Europe really to test our tyres, and that makes it more difficult. But nevertheless, they had data from other years, so I'm not sure what went wrong.
Thanks very much, Pedro.
And I've been joined by Martin. Martin, this is a bleak period for Formula One, this.
I'm really sad. We've ended up with a blame culture here this weekend. It should have been sorted out last night. I think it's through ego, self-interest, some other agendas, and generally people not being able to just sit down and make a common sense decision last night. And now they've painted themselves in a corner. They're really between rock and a hard place. And I wonder if there's a way out of it. It strikes me it's going to have to be a 6-car race. If they declare it an unofficial Grand Prix, surely the FIA will step back. There's no starter then, there's no medical crew, there'll be no backup support, and that is why, as I say, I think they're painted totally in a corner.
Wonderful Grand Prix. There's their Ferraris going out just under half an hour to go to the start of the race, Martin. But coming off that great Grand Prix we had in Canada with Formula One having a terrific momentum, this is a real bucket of cold water over the sport, really.
Yeah, and that's why it's such lunacy. Okay, we're going to have a 6-car race. Really, that's a 2-car race and 4 cars to make noise while the 2 Ferraris are around the other side of the track, as far as I see it. What they haven't done, Jim, is they haven't controlled the paperwork that's been flying around. So when you put an official press release out saying our tyres are not allowed to go through that last corner at speed, then the teams cannot go against that, because especially with the litigious nature of the USA, big corporations like Daimler Chrysler and Red Bull and other massive multi-billion-dollar organisations can't fly in the face of that at all. They're going to have to. They need a document that gives them a reason to go out onto the racetrack. And of course, they've got to apply some science to how, if they're going to go slowly through turn 13, how slowly, how many times. We think Ralph's tyre failed on its first flying lap, for example. So can they maybe change them every 10 laps? There's no science. There's no science available to give them an answer.
Formula One is not about who's going to go slowly.
No, it's not, but today it might just be the common sense route is the chicane, and go racing for the good of Formula One.
Well, there is no sign of that chicane happening, Martin. I mean, unless they're going to knock it up amazingly quickly or delay the start, I just can't see that happening.
Right, well, we had this back in '94 after Senna's death. We, the drivers, forced some chicanes in Canada, Barcelona, and where was the other one? Montreal, and another circuit, I can't remember where it was now, where we demanded, but we ran all weekend with those chicanes, Jim. We knew how to set the car. There's secondary issues here. The control systems on the car very much function with a given lap distance. You can't just add 50 metres into a lap and a big braking zone. You don't know how the brakes are going to react to that. You don't know a lot of other factors to just turn up and race a Formula One car on an unknown racetrack.
We had shots of Jenson Button ready to do the business in the US Grand Prix. We're not quite sure how long he will be running for. One sage came to me a few moments ago and said this is the end of Michelin in Formula One and the end of Formula One in North America.
Well, that may be true. We've been through these disasters before. Back in '82 there was the FIA War and a limited number of cars on the grid, but you can't help but feel they've shot themselves in the foot this weekend. This is an avoidable situation in my view.
Martin, we look forward to hearing from you later on. Norbert Haug of Mercedes. McLaren very concerned about the safety of their drivers. It is developing all the time. The story of the United States Grand Prix will be continued. 20 minutes to go to the start of the United States Grand Prix. We still do not know how many cars will take part in it. We do not know how many cars will run. We'll keep you posted. This fella is a good fan, Richard Cabourn, Minister for Sport. Give us a fan's view of what has happened here so far, or what hasn't happened.
Jim, if you don't know, Jim, nobody knows, quite honestly. It's a bit of a mess, but there's no doubt about it that the governing body have to hold the integrity of the sport together and its safety, and I think, obviously, that's what they're doing. So we'll see what the end results. Unfortunate, obviously. A bit of egg on the face for Michelin, but we'll have to see what happens.
It's been a fantastic season so far. I'm sure you followed it closely. Just put the brakes on it a little bit.
Yeah, very much so. And I think also what the under discussion now from Formula One and the FIA in terms of actually making sure the skill of the driver is now brought back into play as a sport. I think it's very important indeed. So I think it all bodes well for the future. A little hiccup today, but that'll be resolved.
A little hiccup. That's a nice politician's view of what's gone on here today. But you're here to see the US Grand Prix, of course, but to beat the Olympic drum for London, and decision day July the 6th, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. Yeah, there's two reasons. One is obviously motorsport and Silverstone, developing that. But yes, you're right. There's a lot of influential people in Formula One that have connections back into the Olympic movement, and July the 6th is very important for us. And I've got to say, London's got a fantastic reception here. There's no doubt about that. You know, here I'm in America, but New York they seem to be dismissing, and London seems to be coming up as the as the front runner. So that's very pleasing.
And just a final thought: thumbs up or thumbs down on July the 6th? How confident are you about that?
Well, we're coming up on the
on the
last 100
rails against the French.
Well, we are. I think that we've put a fantastic bid in. Team's great, led by Seb. Everybody's behind it. Prime Minister's going to be there for 2 or 3 days in Singapore. Everything to play for now, Jim. It's the biggest prize in sport, and I will get it.
Good luck. Thanks for your company.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's join Ted Kravitz.
OK, the story developing now. Christian, what's happening now?
The situation is pretty clear. Michelin will not allow us to race this tyre, so, unless something changes, we will not be able to race.
But you're going to the grid now?
We'll go to the grid, but, we shall come in on the formation lap.
What's the point in going to the grid? To make a protest?
The big problem is we're under strict instruction from Michelin that we're not allowed to race this tyre, and it would be fairly irresponsible towards our drivers and in the interest of safety to go against their wishes.
Is that the position of all the Michelin teams? Are they all going to go to the grid and then come in on this parade lap?
Looks like it.
Thanks, Christian.
Well, that's the first strong indication we have there, Mark, that the Michelin teams will go to the grid. That is the area where they want the chicane. It has not been built. They will go to the grid. They will do a formation lap of the 2.6 miles of Indianapolis. They should have done 73 of them, but it looks as though those Michelin runners will not go.
It's an incredible situation. I mean, we're about to maybe see a 6-car Formula One race for the first time, and I'm blown away by it. It's a great shame for F1. We really don't need this kind of thing, but the bottom line is you need to think about the safety of who's sitting in that cockpit behind the wheel, and there is no thing will make up for that.
I know Bernie Ecclestone had a go at Indianapolis for not selling the race enough here, and I don't think Formula One has done that much to endear itself to Indiana.
No, it hasn't, and I can only say that's a great shame, because there are some true enthusiastic fans out there in the stands, and there is a love actually for Formula One. There's a very hardcore group of people who follow it, but it needs to get a bigger platform, and this kind of thing does not do that.
We have to talk about the race that's likely to happen. 6 cars, the Bridgestone runners, Minardi, Jordan, and 2 Ferraris, and you don't have to be a Formula One expert to pick what is going to happen in this Grand Prix.
No, you don't. And if Michael Schumacher goes off into the distance, I mean, yeah, we're going to see something as we've seen many times before, but at the end of the day, this is an incredible situation.
Well, there's Bernie in the middle of this storm, really, and I'm sure, knowing him, and we will have to have a word with Bernie sometime, that this is not the scenario that Bernie in his wildest dreams wanted. He said to us yesterday, very confidently in qualifying, we will have a full grid here. The US Grand Prix will be great. It doesn't look as though that is the way it is going to be. There aren't many smiles down on that grid. There's Fisichella in the Renault, and we can have a word down on the grid now with Jenson Button. Sorry, it's Martin Brundle down on the grid. On you go, Martin.
Hello, Jim. Well, I don't know whether to laugh or cry, to be honest. Just complete lunacy. We'll see if we can find somebody who will actually talk to us. Just look at this surface down here, this diamond-cut surface, which is what they think has made the difference. It's our 6th Grand Prix here, and therefore they've got some data about this racetrack. You may be saying to yourself, why are these tyres suddenly blowing up? Maybe it's a bad batch. Maybe it's the extra surface grip. Whatever it is, clearly the teams have been told categorically that they cannot go through that final turn 13 full throttle, so they can't go racing, and that'll be dangerous in itself. If they slow down through that corner, well, how slow is slow? And what about the other cars coming steaming through their full throttle on the Bridgestone tyres? And they'll also be maybe 100 miles an hour slower over this start-finish line where I'm standing if they come off that corner at half speed. So we've got a completely untenable situation. And I think, given the paperwork that's been distributed, the teams, these multi-billion-dollar corporations, can't take the risk. You cannot contract out of negligence. And if one of these tyres blows, a driver's hurt, corner worker's hurt, or a piece ends up in the crowd, everybody is on the hook. And that really is what it's all about at the moment. Let's see if I can find the wee man. Bernie, there's nowhere to go now, is it? You're painted in a corner, yeah? What are you going to do? You're the promoter. We look like we might have just 4 cars starting this race.
Well, looks like there's a lot more cars here. Huh? I'm not the promoter either, so no, they're all here.
But I'm told maybe even the Minardis will peel off at the end of the warm-up lap and just come into pits, and 4 cars will come down to the start line itself. They may be all here at the moment.
Well, you know, so why are you asking me?
Well, I want to know if I'm right or not.
You wait and see.
So, but they can't go around the track. They've been told they can't go flat out. And if they go slow, it's more dangerous. I mean, you can't have 14 cars driving effectively a different racetrack.
I mean, the problem is being caused by the tyres, obviously, by Michelin brought the wrong tyres. It's just simple as that.
Yeah, but then for the interest of Formula One, you must have been screaming at the lot of them to say, sort yourself out. This is what I'm going to do here. I'm taking charge here.
Yeah, but the difference is you can't tell people to do something when the tyre company said you can't race on those tyres.
Did we need some more control on the paperwork that's been flying about and the meetings? Could we not bang some heads together and just get this sorted out last night? Why are we standing on the grid? You're asking me what's going on. I'm asking you what's going on.
I wish I knew. The problem is simple, as I say. There's not the tyres here where the tyre company are confident to say those tyres are okay for you to be, especially on that banking. Quick on the banking.
The future of Formula One in America, the future of Michelin in Formula One.
Not good.
On both counts?
Both counts.
And what'll happen this week? Will they be slapped in some court?
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, it's early days. We don't know. I mean, I feel sorry for the public. I feel sorry for the promoter here.
I feel sorry for my 8 million mates sitting at home here looking forward to a good Grand Prix.
So, yeah, that's what I said to the public.
Go and bang their heads together then. It's too late now. We've run out of time, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens now. I mean, people shouldn't give up on Formula One because of this one incident. I mean, the incident is not the fault of the teams, to be honest with you. I mean, what Michelin said, if they put a chicane on that corner, it would be okay. They could run. And it's been decided not to put a chicane there, so that's it.
Yeah, but they didn't bring tyres that were intentionally not up to it. They've just obviously been caught out by something, a bad batch or this new diamond cut service. We saw Bridgestone having tyres fail in Barcelona with the safety car situation. Surely we just have to have a sensible pill and say, OK, this is the situation we find ourselves in. Let's take a sensible solution and go motor racing.
Tell me where we can buy the pills.
We need to talk to Mrs. Ecclestone. Maybe this needs a woman's common sense here. There's Mrs. Ecclestone. Let's see if she's... Mrs. Ecclestone, this needs a woman's intuition on this, don't you think?
Nothing to say.
I think maybe you should have had something to say and give him a jolly good slapping. Right, apparently Jenson Button is somewhere around here. He was third on the grid. This says Button here. Where can we find him? Has anybody seen him? Somebody said he was about. It's that kind of day where nobody actually wants to say anything. He's talking to Guy Liberté. If you've ever been to Cirque du Soleil, this is the man that is the creator of Cirque du Soleil and a very good friend of Formula One. Jenson, have you got a quick word about the stupidity we're facing here?
I can't say anything. And you know I can't say anything either. I'd like to, but anyway, that's it. You know, I've just got to try and concentrate on what's going on.
You're not going to be getting too sweaty, are you, this afternoon?
We'll have to wait and see.
OK. There we are. Where's Fisichella? He's the next man on the grid. I don't suppose he... Fizzy, anything to say to us?
I don't know yet what happened.
Nothing at all. So you mentally, what are you mentally, you ready to race?
I'm ready, yes, for sure, I'm ready. Yeah.
You're a racer like me. You must be so angry about this.
Yes, I am, because it's difficult to be here and don't know what happened. Don't know what happened.
Would you personally take a risk on the tyres?
I don't think so. No, it's a really high risk. So I don't know.
Okay, thanks for that. Right, let's see if we can talk to a Bridgestone runner who's obviously going to be not dissatisfied with the situation, because they could be getting a bucket load of points down here. And he's talking to Ross Brawn. And obviously a little bit of a... can we dive in here? Can we dive? Look at the crowd behind. They may not see too much racing this afternoon in the quadruple grandstands there. There's I'm just a touch reluctant to go barging into this, because it's clearly a really confidential chat just before they get going. All right, I don't know how long I've got left, because we're kind of running out of steam there. Rubens, well, what do you do? How is your mind focused at the moment about today?
Well, it's still focused for a win. I mean, it's no doubt on that. I'm really sorry for the public. That's the mess. Nobody knows what's going on. We've been told by our Ferrari members to go. That's our main thing. We're gonna start and we're gonna have our race. Hopefully they're gonna be on the race because we look strong. I mean, the tires look strong and everything. So it's really a pity that they are not taking part, if that's true.
Well, I suspect, mate, we're relying heavily on you for an entertaining race and having a go at Michael, so don't let us down. I'm going to throw back to you, Jim.
Well done down there, Martin. I think Ruben's face tells it all. If you're just joining us, welcome to Indianapolis, coming towards the first day of summer here, but very few bright stories around this particular race. Formula One bringing itself into disrepute here, in my view, and there's been a big row about tyres. If you're just turning on, Michelin not sure the tyres will last the whole race. The Michelin runners, that is 14 cars, wanted a special chicane put in here. The chicane has not been added, and so we're not quite sure what we're going to see, but we do not believe that those Michelin runners are going to be around very long. And the 3 cars on Bridgestone, that is Minardi, that is Jordan, and that is the 2 Ferraris, Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, will have the United States Grand Prix all to themselves. Mrs. Eccleston, this little sidestep of Martin down there. But when we sit back at this and take a long look at what's happened here today, Mark Blundell, common sense has definitely not prevailed here.
Well, it's just a difficult situation, Jim, because at the end of the day, we've got a company what supplied us tyres. Those tyres are quite clearly not capable of getting the job done. And inside those cars where those tyres are needing to be getting that job done are human beings. And we can't take on board that safety issue has got to be put to the side. We've got to think about the self-preservation of those guys sitting behind the wheel.
Safety always the most important aspect. Let's pop down and have a word with Ted Kravitz.
Well, let's get the Michelin angle on this, shall we? Nick Shorrock, the head of Michelin at F1 Races. What's going to happen? They're all going to come in?
Well, we don't know. We're just waiting to see. At the moment, we've got no further comment to make other than what was discussed this morning with the team principals. So we're hoping that they're going to depart.
But you've told them it's not safe, so they're all going to come in, right?
I don't know. That's up to the teams. We'll see how they manage that.
But you haven't been able to assure them that the tyres will be safe for more than 10 laps?
It's not a question of 10 laps, it's a question of the product, the interest. We try to guarantee our product, our teams, and also the interest of the Formula One race.
What are going to be the implications, the repercussions for Michelin, Nick?
I don't know. We went to see what the next step is.
It could be very serious.
Could be serious for Michelin. Bernie Eccleston saying don't give up on Formula One. I can only echo that. But we do accept we are testing your patience and testing your loyalty to the limit here. And all those brains, all the expertise has failed to come up, in my view, with a solution before this United States Grand Prix. Indiana Super Speedway. We always see something different, Mark, I suppose. You've been around this game longer than me, but can you remember anything like this happening before?
Not like this. No, I don't. I mean, I remember as Martin Brundle went back and said, 10 odd years ago, we had a chicane put in at Barcelona, Spa, these places, because there was an issue with safety and just reducing speeds and so forth. But at this point in time, I've not seen anything up to the wire. And until this race starts, we really have got no idea what will happen. But for the fans out here, remember, 3 weeks ago, the Indy 500 was here. There was 400,000 people, and they saw a great spectacle. This is a completely different thing.
Absolutely. They saw an English winner as well. Dan Weldon winning the Indy 500 and sipping the pint of milk. I think one or two of us are going to need something a little bit stiffer than that after this particular episode in Formula One. What is really sad about all this is that peak time last week in Canada, we had an absolute thriller. We've had so many great races in Formula One this season. Great momentum. Michael Schumacher fighting to retain his crown. Alonso driving for Flavio Briatore. Absolutely brilliant. And then Raikkonen coming through for McLaren. The whole season really was bubbling, and it has really hit the barriers as things stand here at Indianapolis. But keep the faith. We're not too sure what is going to happen. You never know. Those Michelin runners, they might give it the full charge. Things happened to Juan Pablo Montoya round here, a former Indy 500 winner. He has been fastest except in that qualifying session. Keep the faith. We'll be right back with the United States Grand Prix. You're back with us at the Brickyard, the Super Speedway, Indianapolis, for the United States Grand Prix. Chaos, confusion reigns. Let's see if these two can make any sense of it. Martin Brundle, and first of all, James Allen.
Thank you very much indeed, Jim. Hello again, everybody, back in the UK and joining us around the world, the English-speaking world. Well, I can tell you, you've been watching this programme for an hour, and you know far more about the situation here than the poor old 120,000 people sitting in the grandstands here at Indianapolis. On my way up to the commentary box, which is above the main grandstand here on the pit straight, I talked to a few punters and said, have you any idea what's happening here today? And none of them had any clue about what's happening. And I have a feeling their reaction in a few minutes' time, when all the Michelin teams peel into the pit lane to withdraw, basically, from this Grand Prix before the start happens, will it might be a little bit worse than Austria in 2002 when Ferrari switched the cars on the finish line, if you remember that. Well, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of when I was a kid and we used to have arguments in the garden about what the rules were going to be for the football match. And I'm amazed that the combined brains, the racing brains, the marketing brains, the media brains, the brains of people like Bernie Ecclestone here, 75 years of age, so long in the racing business, the promoter, the genius that built this sport. Charlie Whiting, for many years chief mechanic at Brabham. He knows all the routes and all the games. There he is, the race director. Such an experienced man. There's the wisdom of Solomon on so many occasions when there have been difficult calls. I'm amazed they've not been able to come up with a solution that works for everybody. Looks like it's set to be the biggest farce since the Grand Four, which just didn't get started. The trouble is, this one is in front of a global audience. Jean Todt there, the boss of Ferrari, talking with Bernie Ecclestone. Sadly, we're not quite close enough to hear what's being said. But you can see both sides of the argument, really. Michelin have made a desperate mistake with their tyre choice for this weekend, and they're simply not willing to accept any of the conditions proposed to them by the FIA in which they could race. They could have penalties at the end of the race by using different tyres. They could simply go slowly through the banked turn 13. Michelin aren't prepared to do any of those things. They're not prepared to give away any performance. They say, if you put a chicane in, we'll race. And the FIA say, well, we're not going to do that, and that's the end of the day. Ferrari's point of view, and Bridgestone, you can see that as well. I mean, they withdrew Michael Schumacher in Spain when he had 2 tyre failures because the tyre wasn't safe. They looked for some sympathy from the Michelin teams. They wanted some redrafting on the tyre regulations for 2005. And, of course, the Michelin teams all said, no way, we're not going to play ball with you. So you can't blame Ferrari and Bridgestone on a day like today from wanting to profit to the maximum with 18 points for Schumacher and Barrichello. It's a right old mess, Martin.
It is indeed, yeah. Imagine Ferrari came in and had a fundamental brake issue, and they said, look, we need to take one of the corners out so we have one less braking zone. We want you to change that corner. It's a similar situation. As you say, you can see their point of view, but from time to time they've got to stand back and take the point of view, the best view for Formula One itself. Otherwise they're scoring a massive own goal. But their cars are ready to race. Of course, you can't test here. This is not one of the nominated test tracks. You wouldn't bring teams over here, so any changes to the racetrack are going to have to be calculated. It's not until you arrive, understand the downforce of the cars and the loadings that's going through those tyres. I'm told there were 11 tyres that failed altogether. 2 of them were to absolute destruction, the 2 Toyotas that we saw, and another 9 were very close or close to that exact same problem. So it's a fundamental issue. It's not overreacting to a Toyota that may have a specific setup giving a problem. It is that, you know, it's across the board. 2 teams didn't have a tyre issue with Michelin, Renault and BMW Williams. But of course, that's not to say they won't have in a 73 lap race. None of them have done that amount of mileage. So we can now only assume, as you say, James, that they're going to peel off. What they mustn't do, in my view, is do a half-hearted start to this Grand Prix, because that will be dangerous. You cannot, it's like a half-hearted soccer tackle or rugby tackle. You'll just get hurt. They cannot go cruising into turn 1 with 4 or 6 guys on the grid racing hard, others going in with different degrees of interpretation of what they're actually doing. Quite clearly the drivers are a little bit rabbits caught in the headlight. The ones I saw on the grid kind of just didn't want to say anything, because I'm not sure they know exactly what to say or what the situation. Away they go then on the green flag lap. But it's interesting that Raikkonen from P2 chose to switch off his traction control and lay some rubber down, suggesting he thinks he's going to start the race anyway.
Well, a huge plume of smoke came out of the back of one of the Jordans leaving the start line. It didn't seem to have been engine related, but it seemed to be, well, it's a strange one, that. But listen to the crowd. They're on their feet. They've paid a lot of money. They've travelled a long way to see the US Grand Prix. And what are they going to see? What are we all going to see? Certainly it seems to me that everybody's forgotten who the primary responsibility is to here. It's the sponsors, the manufacturers. This is their biggest marketplace in the world for many of them. BMW, Ferrari, Mercedes-Benz. They sell more cars here than anywhere else in the world. A lot of the sponsors sell more of their products here than anywhere else in the world. And we don't really need to have a bad show here. Formula One just trying to build an audience here. This is our 6th time at the Brickyard. Team radio for Coulthard.
If that is the case, that there's still indecision from the team principals, again, if it comes down to my choice, I want to race.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder...
they're still negotiating, obviously.
Yeah, clearly they are. I know, talking to Mark Webber yesterday, there he is just going through frame now in the BMW Williams. They haven't had too many problems. He feels that quite confident that he could race. It seems we have, instead of a clarity of purpose here, a state of confusion. And Coulthard, for one, is wanting to race. McLaren look like they're getting ready for their cars to come in. Well, you know as little about this as we do. Ted Kravitz, maybe you can offer us something.
And that's the same. McLaren, Williams and Renault, I can see where I am at the moment. And they are all clearing 2 Formula One car spaces for each of their cars to come in and retire.
Here comes Alonso, World Championship leader.
Mate, you know our plan is for the start. Straight in the pits, please, mate.
Yeah, well, he knows that because he's on his way in already. Looks like teammate Fisichella just in front of him. And I think that McLaren Toyota, there's the pole sitter Jarno Trulli pouring into the pits, and just listen to the crowd.
I'm open.
They're stunned, we're stunned. 2 Ferraris on pit straight. Will it be 2 Jordans and 2 Minardis? Some talk the Minardis won't do it. There's a Jordan, and ahead of him is a Minardi. So all the Bridgestone runners are going down to the grid. Coulthard was making a late bid to let me go racing. I want to race. I'm prepared to take the risk this afternoon. The problem is, if he has a problem and takes out one of the other drivers or whatever, there's some significant implications and ramifications of that. So it looks like we're going to have a 6-car start, 6 cars outside our window here.
Well, the only people I can see that are happy are a bunch of Indians just below us who can see that Kartikeyan may well be on for a podium here this afternoon. Who knows what's going to happen in the US Grand Prix? It's the strangest race ever, and it gets underway now. Predictably, Michael Schumacher leads away from Rubens Barrichello. The 2 Jordans, they're going to make a bit of a battle with the Minardi. Looks like we might be losing a Jordan already. I saw smoke earlier, I mentioned it, off the formation lap. The 2 Minardis there battling with the Jordans as well. And what is the reaction of the crowd? Well, it's stunned silence.
I don't know what it says about the 6 teams that have elected to run, to be honest. Maybe they're contractually bound, but you know, they should have joined up and found the solution too. I think they're probably just as guilty here of doing the wrong things as the guys in the pits in many respects, because they they've failed to help a solution be found. We're watching a 6-car race. Thankfully, none of them ran into each other in the first turn.
For the record, Michael Schumacher is leading, Rubens Barrichello is second. That's Thiago Monteiro ahead of Christian Albers. Narain Karthikeyan is fifth, and Patrick Friesacher is sixth, and on for 3 World Championship points here this afternoon. I guess of some interest is who's going to get the final podium slot, because clearly if the 2 Ferraris are reliable up the front, they're likely to finish 1 and 2. It's 73 laps. It's going to take an awful long time here. But who's going to end up the final podium slot?
There is
perverse interest in that.
There is actually, isn't there? I know some teams put money on Karthikeyan yesterday and 1 or 2 others for podiums before all this blew up. So that'll be interesting to see how that one works out down at the bookies. So we've got a 4-car scrap for that 3rd place. Barrichello and Schumacher, 0.7 second. Louise has found David Coulthard.
Well, David, normally if you're talking to me this early in a race, it's because you've had some kind of technical problem. Obviously, a very, very different situation today.
Yeah, you know, I've really a horrible feeling in my stomach. I've never experienced anything like this in my career before, and it's quite remarkable that in the interests of the sport that we couldn't find a resolution that would allow us to go racing. And I understand that it's not the fault of Bridgestone, it's a technical fault with Michelin, they have to pay some penalty. But, you know, you have your viewers, we have the crowd here, we've all come here to not race. Is, you know, this is going to leave a long-lasting bitter taste in people's mouths. And as a driver, quite frankly, I'm embarrassed to be part of this situation. But we've been acting under instruction on the grounds of safety from Michelin, and there was no choice left open to us.
Explain to us, there was talk that a chicane would be built, and then you would all be happy to race. Why was that chicane not built?
I can't answer that. I believe there was a disagreement from Friday to accept that would be the case, and obviously Charlie made his position on behalf of the FIA quite clear that they didn't feel that they should have to alter the track. But I think this is a unique situation. I think it was one that on the grounds of safety they could have taken that stance. I know it's going to be one of these scenarios now of who should have done, who could have done. The reality is mature adults were not able to come to a resolution that would allow us to put on the show that everyone wants to see in Formula 1. We wanted to go racing, and it's a very sad day for the sport, I have to say.
Thanks, David.
Well, it is a very, very sad day for the sport indeed. We have got a race underway, though. The crowd are booing and jeering Jacques Villeneuve. Many times a hero here in North America, winner of the 1995 Indianapolis 500 in front of 500,000 people here at the Brickyard. Certainly one of the high points of his career. This is definitely the low point. That's Jarno Trulli, the pole sitter. In dramatic fashion yesterday, snatched Toyota's first ever pole position in Formula 1. It's all pretty academic now, though. Schumacher comes across the line to complete lap 3. He is a second ahead of Barrichello, 5 seconds ahead of Monteiro. Albers is still chasing after Monteiro, but it looks like Friesacher is being dropped at the back there, so the race goes on.
Absolutely sure of the points position, but I believe it's a point-scoring race in that when they take to the dummy grid, effectively that's the warm-up, that's the first lap of the Grand Prix, isn't it? And it means, I think, that they'll score points. Whether they've got to get past three-quarter distance to score points, I'll be poking around in my regulations. But the crowd are booing, and the drivers are feeling helpless about that because they've been innocent bystanders, really. And although maybe the GPDA, Grand Prix Drivers Association, should have got together last night too and started jumping up and down and screaming, but you know, if you get a piece of paper from your tyre supplier that says you are not allowed to use any of our tyres in these premises at full speed around the banking, what can you do? You can't go out. You cannot fly in the face of that. The penalties and ramifications that are just way too scary to contemplate.
Looking down, lots of thumbs down in the crowd as the Ferraris go past. The only people that are happy, as I say, there's two camps that are happy here. There's Ferrari fans who can see a 1-2 finish, and there is a large contingent of Indians who are hoping that Karthikeyan will get himself on the podium, but at the moment it doesn't look like he's going to. Let's just take the time here to explain how we got into this position and what the cause of the problem was. Depending on who you talk to down in the paddock, certainly amongst the Michelin runners, basically the teams play a role in choosing the tyres that Michelin will bring to each race, and Michelin bring a range of different tyres. They offer 2 choices per team. That's not the same 2 choices to every team, and it seems that 1 or 2 of the teams went for quite an aggressive tyre, quite soft, But the one thing that is for sure is that the problem here is that the carcass construction of all of the tyres was the same, so there was no other alternative for people to go to. Michelin tried to suggest flying out some tyres from France overnight Saturday into Sunday, but it would have meant bolting them on and going out on a setup of tyres that the drivers had never even tried before. It would have hugely compromised the performance of the cars, but beyond that, it's against 5 new separate regulations, FIA regulations, that would inevitably have been penalties. All along, Bridgestone and Ferrari have said, along with the FIA, why should we suffer for the terrible mistake that Michelin have made? And that's been the point of no return. There's been no accommodation, no attempt to make an accommodation to that in the interests of sporting spectacle, in the interests of putting on a show not only for the 120,000 people here but also for the rest of the world. Sadly, once again, this man finds himself in the centre of the controversy. He's been the cause of the controversy, Jean Todt, on a number of occasions. He's made some decisions that a lot of fans around the world didn't like. They felt was anti-sporting. But on this occasion, you'd have to say he's part of a system. The FIA and Bridgestone and Ferrari are on one side, and everybody, that looks like a bottle that someone's thrown onto the track in disgust. It's a heck of a throw from the grandstands to there, I have to say. But anyways, sorry.
The Ferraris are only about a second a lap faster than the Jordans, so they're not really racing either. I've got to say, if it was Ferrari, the teams, Bridgestone and the FIA fighting all of the solutions, then they're as guilty as everybody else this weekend. And I hope now they're watching this, they realise the stupidity of it, because this is nonsense, absolute nonsense. Button walking through the paddock with 14 other drivers, 4 drivers on the track, driving the life out of what are very slow cars in the 2 Jordans, 2 Minardis, and then 2 fast cars out there not really pushing each other. They're just popping into the 112s now. That's some 2 seconds off the pace.
It's a failure to see the bigger picture. That's the problem. No one denies that, as the thumbs go down from the crowd, no one denies that Ferrari are not at fault here, but it's definitely a failure to see the bigger picture and put a show on. Well, the communications director of Ferrari is Luca Colliani. How's he feeling at the moment, Ted? Is he happy with himself?
Well, no. I mean, he's as sad as the rest of us. Luca, I mean, your guys are racing out there, aren't they, first of all?
Yeah, we are racing. We worked all the day and all the weekend to prepare this race. And what we are seeing now, it's really sad. It's really sad, first of all, for the thousands of people here who have come here to have a great show, and they cannot have it. But I think that this situation is due to the responsibilities are very, very clear. And it's not up to, there are no responsibility up to FIA, because that is mainly a performance problem. So if the public has someone to blame, they know where they have to go.
So you're saying that the blame lies squarely with Michelin. You're saying the blame lies squarely on the shoulders of Michelin Tyre Company.
I think it's clear. I think it's obvious. FIA this morning said that they could have resolved the situation, dropping their performance. They didn't want.
And for anyone to say that, oh, well, Ferrari and Bridgestone, you know, what kind of race is this? What would you say to them?
On our side, it's a normal race. Now, clearly, it's important that we don't have any reliability issue, but we are working as good as we would have worked with all the cars together. It's not that it's just for fun. We are racing.
There are suggestions that Ferrari said, no, we will not agree to build the chicane at the last corner that would have allowed this race to go ahead. Is that right?
No, because that request has not been... If this request has been done, it has been done to FIA, because it's up to FIA to decide things like this, not up to the team.
Thank you very much, Luca.
Well, there's Luca Colliani, communications director from Ferrari. Well, we saw Jarno Trulli was our pole sitter. He's talking now with Louise Goodman.
Jarno, for the first time ever, a Toyota lines up at the front of the grid. Seconds later, you're in the pit lane. I mean, this is just the most bizarre situation. How do you feel about it?
Well, it's a big frustration for the whole team, for the drivers, for Formula One in general, especially here in front of the USA fans. But we couldn't avoid this situation. We were in danger, we knew it, and it was very clear that Michelin runners couldn't race today.
Do you feel that this situation obviously should have been sorted out? Could it have been sorted out earlier on, and then we could have had a race?
It was quite a complicated situation, I must say, because on one hand we had some other teams on Bridgestone which stand up and say, you know, everything is fine for us. This is the rules, this is the track, you have to race. If you cannot compete, you don't compete. And, you know, it's fair because honestly they've done everything right. And unfortunately we have had a problem, probably a manufacturer problem. It's still difficult to understand what was the problem, but we honestly couldn't race like that. For Formula One and also for the fans, because would have been stupid.
What kind of message does this send out to all of those fans?
Sorry?
What kind of message does this send out to all of those fans?
I think Formula One has sent the message that they're reasonable, they're sensible. You know, first priority is safe. And today we proved that we are sensible people. We all stand up and say, you know, someone has made a mistake. We're sorry. We are sorry with all fans, but we couldn't race.
Ultimately, who do you hold responsible for this situation?
Well, I'm not the right person to ask about.
Thanks, Jarno.
Nice swerve, Jarno. I'm not sure I agree with the line about sensible people. I don't think anybody's going to take that message away from this US Grand Prix of 2005. Certainly the people who below me in the grandstands are now walking out in disgust, and we've heard them stamping their feet. It's slightly nerve-wracking actually, because we're about 150 feet up in the air above a... Oh, he's been called into the box, sounds like. That means pit box. Christian Albers. I hope we're not going to lose one of our 6 runners here this afternoon. Certainly the vibrations at the moment, everyone's stamping their feet in the grandstands, are pretty intense. That was Dickie Stanford, the team manager of Williams, just walking in. And here you can see Minardi team obviously going to bring Albers in. This is lap 11, and it looks like it's for a scheduled stop.
Yeah, he's obviously on some kind of 3-stop this afternoon. Low fuel for qualifying. A little tweak on the front wing to help the balance. Just about the only change you can make during the race, really. The rear wing is very much bolted and fixed into place. So Albers away cleanly. The leading pace still in the 13s. I would have expected them to have been in the 11s and low 12s if they'd have been racing against Raikkonen, Alonso and co. Quite how they're going to work the qualifying starting order out for the next Grand Prix, I guess we'll worry about that in the week for the French Grand Prix. The regulations say you'll only be classified as a finisher if you finished 90% of the number of laps covered by the winner, but I still believe you'll score points. I think the points are still allocated down through the field.
So I know what you're thinking at home. Why has this happened to Michelin and it hasn't happened to Bridgestone? Well, there's a number of different explanations for that. One of them is that Bridgestone is a more conservative company than Michelin. I'll finish that one off in a second, because Louise Goodman's now found the Renault boss, Flavio Briatore.
Flavio, if I can just interrupt your discussion here. Flavio, what kind of message is this sending out to people about Formula One?
Only I'm sorry. I think so the message, I'm sorry for the public, I'm sorry for the spectator, I'm sorry for the people watching TV, I'm sorry. But in another one way, and after the press release from Michelin we have in the morning, really was no question for us to racing.
But how can a multi-million-pound sport that travels around the world, has global exposure, find itself in this situation?
Yeah, normal. Sometimes you have a problem with the car, you know, you break a suspension and you call the driver to come back in the garage. This was technical problem from Michelin, happen. I hope it was not happen, you know, happen a problem like that, and we need at least cure the problem. We are very happy to leave in the people from Bristol in front of us. What we ask is only what Michelin asked, a different configuration of the circuit, and what's possible change.
So why did that not happen?
You need to talk with the federation, I don't know why.
I understand that some of the fans watching this race are now throwing things onto the track. You must have some sympathy with them, even if not with their actions.
The fans is not... the fans is completely right. Right, this is the demonstration Formula One really is need doing something, because it's not possible like that, really. We are sad, our mechanic is sad, the driver is sad, we want to race. We want to race. And we don't care about Ferrari starting in front or whatever. It was not the case of the point. We want to race with no point. Only for make sure the under 50, but we want to race in the safety of our driver. Simple like that.
Thanks, Flavio.
Exactly. What they should have done is said, OK, all Michelin runners, we will not score points today. We will not score points, but we will go out there with a chicane. Schumacher leads by 0.8 of a second from Barrichello.
Welcome back to the United States Grand Prix on lap 15. We're witnessing one of the greatest farces in the history, and a long and proud history, of Formula One Grand Prix racing. We have just 6 cars taking the start here. The 2 Ferraris, not surprisingly, are in a league of their own at the front. Schumacher doesn't want to push his car too hard. He's lapping in the high 1:12. Rubens Barrichello is going a little faster at the moment, but I'm sure... Well, they say they're racing. Let's hope they are. And behind them, Tiago Monteiro, the Portuguese driver. In his first season, he's completed all 8 Grand Prix so far, and that's a record for any rookie in Formula One. He's currently on for a podium in 3rd place, ahead of teammate Narenka de Cayenne, with the 2 Minardis of Frisacker and Albers 5th and 6th. Why have we only got 6 cars on the track? Why does it say Trulli out, Raikkonen out, etc.? That's because the Michelin tyre here this weekend has been adjudged not safe by the French tyre maker. They will not let their teams race on it, particularly through the high-speed turn 13. They asked the FIA to put a chicane in there so that they could race, but the FIA said no. It will penalise unfairly Ferrari, Bridgestone and the other Bridgestone teams for no fault of their own. The bigger picture was completely forgotten. The interests and common sense were completely forgotten, and instead we are witnessing something truly stupid.
Now. Just over 10 kilos in there. A light car now.
Well, one man who does have some cars out on track at the moment is the Minardi boss, Paul Stoddard. What does he make of it all, Louise?
Well, Paul, your cars are circulating out there on the track. Just explain that decision to us. Why did you go out and race?
This morning, Lou, 9 teams agreed not to race today unless there was a chicane put in to allow the Michelin runners to run. The reason my cars are out there is simple, is because one of those teams decided not to honour that commitment, and it's the only team we're racing in the championship, which is Jordan. So while the Jordan cars continue to circulate, we have no choice. But I have to say, I don't believe that this should have happened. It shouldn't have come to this. What we've done here today is going to live a long time in Formula One supporters and fans around the world's eyes, and it's not good for the sport.
What for you was a sensible resolution of this issue?
We had enough time this morning to put a chicane in, which was what was requested. Would have allowed all teams to compete and race. 9 out of the 10 teams agreed this morning not to race unless that chicane was put in. I believe the FIA and Ferrari did not take an issue, and the FIA did not agree to that chicane, and all of the reasons and the reverberations from the decision to not do that, well, we're hearing it here in the stands. I don't blame people for stamping their feet. The most important thing today was that a race should go ahead, but this is not a race, this is a farce. You mentioned that, there were 9 teams in agreement that you would race. Obviously, the team that weren't was Ferrari. Ferrari have, we've seen over this season, traditionally stood with the FIA on matters. Is there an element of that argument continuing through into this, what we have here? I think it's going to come out that way. I mean, Ferrari are probably in an interesting position. They'll say that the Bridgestone tyres had no problems, and why should they be disadvantaged when they're fighting for the championship? But no one's going to take this race seriously today. No one's going to be happy that Ferrari has a 1-2, and no one's going to be happy that the rest of the cars are not competing. And, this is... Formula One's done some crazy things lately with the FIA interfering with regulations, etc., etc. But this one today, I think, will have far-reaching implications. All this talk about stupid regulations, all the interference in the sport, it needs to stop, and it needs to stop now, because if it doesn't stop, what we're seeing here this afternoon is exactly where Formula One is heading, unless some people quickly act to right the wrongs, and the wrongs start at the top.
Assuming your cars get to the finish, you will score some very valuable points, which under normal circumstances is very difficult for you to do. Will you take no joy from that?
Not the slightest. As you can see, the cars are racing. It's the first time I can ever remember being back out the back of the garage while the cars are racing. I'm not in the slightest bit interested. This is not a race, it's a farce.
Thanks, Paul.
Might be a farce, but both Ferrari drivers could do with the 10 points, because it will launch them right back into the championship contention, however hollow the victory. So we mustn't forget that both Barrichello and Schumacher has 24 points, Barrichello 21. We put them nicely back in, 3rd, 4th in the championship, with a long way to go this year and a lot of points to be scored. So you can kind of half see why they're out there. I think I'd be really interested to know if the Michelin teams ever offered, right, you put the chicanes in, we'll race, but we don't score points today, because they ain't going to score any points anyway. And then we could have gone racing All right, maybe a Bridgestone Ferrari would have tripped over a Michelin-shod car somewhere and been knocked out of the Grand Prix. That's the risk they would have to have taken to put the show on the road.
They've just called Patrick Friesacher in for his pit stop. Let me ask you a question then. How would you, as a Grand Prix driver who takes risks as a way of life, as yet another piece of debris, that's quite dangerous the way that this debris is now coming down onto the drivers. That's a risky business. I was going to say to you, it's a beer can that's full of beer that's been thrown down. That would hurt if you hit it at 180 miles an hour. But how would you feel going out there risking your life for 73 laps, knowing that you weren't going to score any points at the end of it? You'd just be racing for fun.
Yeah, but with the chicane, I think it's absolutely clear that that's a calculated risk you'd be prepared to take. You put your pressures up, maybe have a concession on your downforce level and take away that highly loaded 20-second area with a very slow chicane down there at 12. You'd have to give the drivers chance to practice, which is why they should have made the decisions last night. You can't just rock up to a surprise corner. Webber said it'd be like putting a chicane on the main runway at Heathrow. You'd be struggling to see it, but these are the top drivers in the world. They would easily get used to that if they had a few times through. There was a way through this. They could have and should have found a way through this. But, let's not forget that both those Ferrari drivers want to steal these 10 points, even if they're cheap. Well, you're absolutely right, because certainly from Michael Schumacher's point of view, 10 points here today will take him up to 34 in the World Championship, just 3 behind Raikkonen and Trulli. So all of a sudden, everyone thinking that this was a 2-horse race for the World Championship between Raikkonen and Alonso would find that, in fact, Michael Schumacher had joined in as well. And this was anyway, whatever happened with Michelin and this controversy, this was always going to be, from the moment we got here, Ferrari's most competitive weekend so far this season. They look very, very strong in the long runs on Friday, as Thiago Montero, I think that is, or is it Cardicayan, dives into the pit lane to make the first Jordan stop of the afternoon. We've had the 2 Minardis in already, and Cardicayan it is from 4th place who dives in. The other irony and stupidity is that it's all about safety, and it's about crowd safety and corner worker safety. We've got marshals on the track retrieving full beer cans down into turn 1 where the cars are approaching at 210 miles an hour, and that's far more dangerous than some of the risks that were being talked about through the weekend. This is lap 21. Already the Ferraris have caught and lapped one of the Minardis. I believe it's Patrick Friesacher they've caught and lapped. Indeed it is. Just to go back to what I was saying before, why is it that Bridgestone are not having a problem with this turn 13 here? How come they're able to go through there and the Michelins are not? Well, I explained what the problem was with Michelin. They brought carcasses and constructions that simply didn't work through the high loadings on the left rear tyre of that corner. 2 tyres failed during free practice on Friday. A number of others were going to fail, including, I understand, one on Pedro de la Rosa's car and a number of other teams as well. And so clearly that's what led us to Michelin's position. Why haven't the Bridgestones had a problem? Well, part of the reason is because Bridgestone, through their American affiliate Firestone, were racing here in the Indy 500 last month, and feedback was transmitted from the US operation to Japan, to the Formula One team, saying they've resurfaced this track. It is slightly more abrasive, the tyre wear is marginally higher, but they've got these diamond cut grooves that Martin was illustrating in the surface. A number of people certainly feel that's pit for Montero to come in there. You can hear from Jordan. Certainly a number of teams have felt that contributed to the problem. It's if you go down there and put your hand on it, it's quite rough the way that these grooves have been cut. Bridgestone anyway had some inside information from their IRL teams taking part of the Indy 500. That certainly contributed. And the other factor as well is that Bridgestone generally are a more conservative company than Michelin, who tend to bring a slightly more racy package of tyres to the tracks, looking for competition, looking for performance, where Bridgestone have tended always to err on the side of caution. And certainly Hisao Suganuma, the boss of Bridgestone's Formula One operation here, the chief engineer, he told me a few months ago that you don't take any chances here at Indianapolis. With the huge loadings on that bank corner, you always need to bring a tyre that you're sure is going to be strong enough to take it. Of course, Dan Weldon won the Indy 500 here, averaging probably 225 miles an hour some laps. Different type of motor car, though, in terms of carrying a lot less downforce. These cars are heavily loaded up with downforce to get through the infield section, and they're not designed to do the oval. With the 9-degree banking and the downforce and all the loads going through the rear tyre, the shoulder of the tyre overheats and can fail. As I said, there are 11 failures apparently in free practice. 2 of them really showed up to us with the Toyotas flying off the road. But it was a significant issue, no doubt about it. It wasn't It's not just them nannying their way out of a potential problem this weekend. It was a very serious issue, and it's quite clear who created the problem. The Michelins are not up to the job, but that's not the problem now, is it? The problem was they couldn't find a solution to do something about it.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, everyone's been wading through the rule books looking for what can and can't be done. Charlie Whiting, the race director, saying yesterday that they simply couldn't use a different tyre that they flew out here overnight because it breaks 5 regulations. But I think perhaps after this we're going to need some strong leadership, and someone's going to need to stand up and say, well, hang on a second, perhaps there should be an overriding rule that Formula One has a responsibility to put on a show to the public. And let's not forget this, Martin. The operating budgets of these teams, Ferrari, Toyota, BMW, Williams, we're talking about 250, 300 million pounds a year. This is a $1 billion roadshow that isn't able to put a show on for a simple technical reason that could easily be overcome.
Yes, and what's really bothering me is that right from the get-go yesterday morning, when this problem reared its head, you got the feeling of the answer's no. Now what's the question in terms of finding some solutions? Schumacher leads by 0.9 of a second.
Lap 26 of the American Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher, the race leader since the start, makes a stop. They had a new left rear tyre ready just in case, but doing a lot of checking just to make sure it's okay. You are allowed to change one tyre in the current rules if it's perceived to be dangerous. There you can see Rubens Barrichello going through to take the lead. Michael Schumacher having a fairly lengthy stop there. So Barrichello assumes the lead, but I think Schumacher took on a bit more fuel than his teammate.
That's an interesting point, James, in that we don't really know if the Bridgestones will do 73 laps around here non-stop. We haven't seen that, obviously, in free practice. With a limitation on engine mileage, they've got to carry an engine through 2 Grand Prix, and they've got a limited number of tyres for the weekend, so they don't do any more laps than they need to do around this 2.6-mile track. So a good look then at the left rear of Michael Schumacher's car. Maybe we're lucky to have 6 cars in this race. There's a useless piece of information for you. 1926 French Grand Prix had 3 starters, which were all Bugattis. Don't know if they were on Michelins. And only one of them was running in the last 50 miles. Ted has found some very unhappy fans here.
Well, yes, here we are, Martin, in the shadow of the pagoda. Sir, may I ask, how much did you pay for your tickets this weekend?
My tickets were $85 plus $25 for Friday and Saturday practice and qualifying.
Okay, what do you think of what's going on?
I think it's absolutely a crock. People pay lots of money to come and see this race. They've come from as far as I did and further. I came 9.5 hours from Baltimore, Maryland, Washington, D.C. There are people that came from other countries. Indy wouldn't do this. NASCAR wouldn't do this. Why Formula One?
Are you going to follow Formula One anymore?
Only on TV. I will not come back to Indy unless they rectify the situation by offering refunds for everybody that's leaving the facility right now.
It's a very good idea. Let's see what some other people around here think. Gentlemen, what do you think?
We flew from
without swearing, please.
I won't. We flew all the way from Mexico just to watch the race. We have
Mexico.
We have airplane tickets, hotel rooms, dinners, for coming here on this. This is ridiculous. Absolutely unacceptable. It's not right.
And what do you think? Any more views here? Will you follow Formula One anymore?
Yeah, no. I mean, I flew from Panama, and this is absolutely wrong, man. This is BS.
Okay, they're all shouting refunds here. I think you can really understand their point. And look, now the policeman with some very, very upset fans.
Yeah, generally a pretty well-behaved crowd, you'd have to say, Formula One people, but I can imagine there's an awful lot of anger there.
OK, Michael, so the situation is at the moment we have 2 laps more fuel than Rubens. We have 2 laps more fuel than Rubens, so we need to close him down. Try and save a bit of fuel in case we can get an extra lap to add to the margin, and then we'll see what we can do at the next pit stop.
That's not information we tend to get during a normal Grand Prix. We never get access to the Ferrari radios. So Michael then is under pressure to close Rubens down. Now we're going to see some faster lap times, I suspect. But he's also been told to save some gas at the same time. So it kind of don't quite add up, that one.
It doesn't really. Let's try and work out why we're in this position. It was a slightly strange one, just as we came back from the break, that Michael Schumacher dived in the pits. They were examining that left rear tyre quite carefully. And whilst they were doing so, that pit stop very quietly took 16.8 seconds, where Rubens Barrichello's had taken just 9.5 seconds. So suddenly Michael Schumacher found himself losing 7 seconds, and that meant that Rubens Barrichello was in front of him. Now, we heard Chris Dyer there the race engineer of Michael Schumacher, saying that he's got 2 laps more fuel than Rubens. So basically he needs to get himself quite close to the back of Barrichello before the second round. Do that and have a normal pit stop next time round, then he'll get the lead back again. Is it a real fight? Is it all part of the bizarre chicanery which is the US Grand Prix of 2005? Who knows? But it's certainly a race that we'll be talking about for a very long time to come. I think the gentleman who'd flown in from Panama and the gentleman who'd flown in from Mexico will be certainly talking about this when they get back. This is the examination you could see of the left rear tyre of Schumacher's. That's the one that's been causing all the problems this weekend. It takes all the load. There you can see, it takes all the load up on the banking. The tyre tends to want to fold in under itself, and that certainly was the problem that the Michelin runners were encountering. It was the sidewall of the tyre that was having a failure because they underestimated just exactly the nature of the loads that they would be encountering. The comparable corner, Martin, is turn 3 in Barcelona, isn't it? A very, very long right-hander.
Just to confirm, everything looks okay with the tyres, no problem with the tyres, and the wear prediction is fine, more than 100 laps, no problem for wear.
Yeah, the problem is that it's the 9-degree banking plus then the straight. I mean, the tyres are working incredibly hard on the straight. I know what it's like at Le Mans. That tends to be where they go bang, is actually on the straights. Don't forget, you know, at 210 miles an hour, downforce squares with speed. That car is carrying effectively at least twice its own weight. The drive along the ceiling has got more downforce than weight, and that's pushing the tyre into the road. Something's got to be taking the energy and load, transmitting the grip. So the tyres are critical in terms of how they manage that. And my understanding is that the Michelin, a set of Michelins, is the best part of 6 kilograms heavier than the Bridgestones. It's a different philosophy of how they make the tread and how they turn it into the side wall. And quite clearly that philosophy has hurt Michelin badly here this weekend.
Well, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway president, Tony George, was conspicuous by his absence this morning when all the horse trading was going on. He was up in his office in his pagoda. We didn't hear from him at all. We don't know what his view is of this situation, but clearly he's the one that the angry fans are addressing themselves to. They're trying to find him or any Indianapolis official and ask for their money back. And as we heard from that gentleman, $80 for a ticket on race day. We've got about 120,000 people here. That's millions and millions of dollars of ticket money that will be demanded back. You've obviously heavily involved through you being the chairman of the British Racing Drivers Club for a few years, up until quite recently at Silverstone. Put yourself in the promoter's position for this situation. I mean, if this happened at Silverstone, how would you be feeling with the door being bashed down? And obviously, what do you think the liability is here for the Indianapolis Speedway?
I would imagine they're going to be under a lot of pressure to give the money back, although there has been a Grand Prix, there is a race going on. We've still got 6 cars out there, so quite what the legal scenario is on that, I have no idea, frankly. Louise is down at Jordan.
Yes, I'm down here with Adrian Burgess, the sporting director of the Jordan team. Adrian, can you explain to us the decision-making process? Why have you decided to send your cars out to race today when so many other teams aren't?
For us, we're not experiencing any problems with the tyres we've been given to use by Bridgestone, and I think at a high level these decisions need to be made. We're here to do a job. We want to do a job. All these people have paid a lot of money. They're not going to be happy, but the 6 cars are out there and we're trying to put on a little bit of a show. The people above us need to make the decisions on that.
I understand earlier on today you were one of the 9 teams who were effectively holding fast and saying we will not race unless the chicane is put in. Why did you change that decision?
We want to help, we want to race, as everyone's here, but the people above us decided not to put the chicane in. We're here, we want to do a job. We have to appreciate the safety side of it. We don't want to hurt anyone, but where we are with our tyres, we're happy to do the race, so we carry on.
But did it not cross your mind to stand fast with the 9 teams who were saying that they wouldn't race?
That was a decision not for me to make. My decision from my boss was to go out and race, same as Ferrari and Minardi.
Thank you.
Well, that's interesting because that completely contradicts what Paul Stoddart, the boss of Minardi, told Louise a few minutes ago, that he was prepared to go with the Michelin teams and insist on a chicane here this afternoon. Otherwise, he wouldn't race. It would have left Ferrari on their own out there. And Jordan, he says, reneged on that deal. Obviously, they felt they could get some points here this afternoon, more points than Minardi, so they sent their cars out. That'll take some picking the bones out of that one, because it certainly would have been a very different situation if you just simply had 2 Ferraris on the grid. That would have put enormous pressure on everybody to try and find a different solution, instead of which Stoddart says he was compelled to send his cars out because he couldn't afford to have Jordan scoring an enormous amount of points here this afternoon, perhaps as many as 10 when they are their closest competitors in Formula One. And I think it was interesting because Stoddart, I mean, today he stands, even as things are now, to score 7 or 8 World Championship points, which is probably the biggest payday Minardi have had in their entire history. And he was prepared to put that to one side and say, no, actually, this is wrong, and we stand firm with the others. And let's go for a chicane, and if needs be, make it a non-championship race.
Well, Stoddy's standing firm on other issues, isn't he, with the manufacturers? And it has to be mentioned that the key manufacturers that are part of the GPWC that are fighting for a possible breakaway series in the future, all of them are suspended on Michelin tyres, and they're all caught up in this. They're all caught up in the same net today. So one stone is getting a lot of birds there in terms of the politics that are going on there and the other agendas that are going on underneath the surface of Formula One. A bit ironic, isn't it, that Ferrari were booed here back in 2002 for showboat. Michael was showboating at the finish, got it slightly wrong, and Barrichello won the race. And the American fans couldn't get their head around that one either. But today they're really the only ones putting on the show.
Well, I mentioned before that Tony George has not been seen, particularly the boss of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Apparently, I'm being told he was in the meetings, but he hasn't made any comment as yet on what he feels about what's happening here. So, just for the record, Tony George was at the meetings. He did know what was going on, but no comment from him as yet. As you can see, some people driving out of here. An awful lot of question marks hanging over Formula One, particularly its position in America going forward here. There was some talk before this weekend that maybe we might have another American Grand Prix in Las Vegas. Bernie Eccleston talking about perhaps using the Strip, the Las Vegas Strip for a Grand Prix. We had a race there in the early 1980s in the car park of Caesar's Palace. But this looked like a permanent home of Formula One. It looked nicely set up. We're having a great championship, and then this happened. Well, we saw some beer cans being thrown onto the track in the path. One of them almost hit Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello. Ted Kravitz has found one of Indiana's finest policemen, who is apparently concerned with crowd security now.
Yeah, absolutely, James. This is Captain Bob Karwowski of the Marion County Sheriff's Department. Well, Captain, what have you found? Lots of fans getting very unhappy around here. What are your officers saying?
We just noticed there's a select few that are voicing their opinion, but for a majority, most of the fans are being good.
Do you ever get any kind of crowd trouble at other motor racing events here, the Brickyard 400 or the Indy 500?
The Indy 500 is probably our biggest problem. The Brickyard 400, they're a good group of race fans. Same way with the Formula One. Very good, dedicated group of race fans.
So you've never had angry fans like this?
Not at all.
What do you think, what will happen if they start to get a bit rowdy?
Well, basically, we have a contingency of state police, Marion County Sheriff's Department, IPD, which is Indianapolis Police Department, and the Speedway Police Department, along with the FBI, for a contingency of probably about 400 to 500 police officers, and we will deal with the problem.
Thank you, Captain.
OK, I'm now with Jenson Button, who's actually walking out of the circuit. Jenson, what kind of response are you expecting to get from the fans when you go through these turnstiles?
I'm sure it won't be great, but there's not much we can do about that. You know, it's terrible for them, I'm sure. You know, they've come to watch a Formula One race here. But we can't do much. You know, we have to think about our safety first, and if it's not safe to drive around here for whatever reason, you know, we can't drive. You know, that's basically it.
This could have been sorted, surely.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? But that's not really for me to comment on. You know, there's been a lot of discussion about trying to resolve the issue, but they haven't come to a decision, so we couldn't risk it. You know, it's too dangerous.
If it was you making the decision, what would you have done?
Well, it's difficult, really, you know.
Go on.
Whatever I say will be wrong, so I'm not going to say anything. Anyway, just got to say sorry to the fans, really. It's obviously disappointing for them, so, you know, just got to look forward to Manicourt now, and hopefully we'll get a good reception.
Thanks, Jenson.
Yeah, it may not pay to wear your team shirt at Indianapolis Airport tonight. You go put your pass in your pocket and you put a T-shirt on or something and take the team shirt off, because it's normally an absolute zoo down there anyway after the race. But imagine those people going back to places like Panama. Even if you're going to the west coast of America, it's almost like a long-haul flight, isn't it, from places like this? And it's not just the money they've spent getting into the track, it's what they've spent on their hotels, on their airfares, and
yeah, the American race fans, I've known them for quite some time. I have to say they're very passionate and very knowledgeable, and they do travel a long distance. Last night I did a a charity auction with Sir Jackie Stewart for his Grand Prix Mechanics Charitable Trust, and we raised $14,000 from some paddock passes that were available for this race. And the man who bought them was extremely happy, extremely enthusiastic. But he's been in the middle of it all this afternoon, this morning, watching all the politics going on. The crowds in the stands, they've been kept in the dark and they don't like it at all. This is lap 38 of 73, half distance in the American Grand Prix of the 6 cars, and Barrichello still leads Schumacher by 2.7 seconds. Lap 40 of the American Grand Prix at Indianapolis. You're going to remember this day for a while, aren't you? I think we all are. This is the greatest sporting farce since the Grand National that never got started. In fact, it blows that into the weeds. Certainly the biggest farce in the history of Formula One racing. We have just 6 cars have started this Grand Prix. The 2 Ferraris are out front, Barrichello and Schumacher around 3 seconds apart. Fastest lap of the race so far, that last time through from Barrichello. He knows he's got 2 laps less fuel than Michael Schumacher. Stops, and so he's vulnerable to his team leader. Managed to pass him in the first round of pit stops, but unless he can pull out a margin here, he's going to get repassed in the second round of stops in about 8 to 10 laps from now. Third place at the moment, the Portuguese driver Tiago Monteiro in the Jordan, ahead of teammate Narain Kartikeyan. Then the 2 Minardis of Frisaca and Albers are 5th and 6th. We've had full cans of beer being thrown at the Ferraris from the crowd. Very unhappy at what's happening here. For those of you just joining us, we've got all the main Michelin teams have not taken part in this Grand Prix. Michelin advising them that the tyre they brought here this weekend in Indianapolis was not safe to race on. We had a huge accident on Friday just coming out of this corner here for Ralf Schumacher. It's where this tyre let go about there, and he hit the wall on the outside. And following that investigation, Michelin found that there was a problem with the tyres they brought here. And although they were able to qualify yesterday, all of their runners, with Jarno Trulli giving Toyota its first ever pole position in Formula One, with Kimi Raikkonen, who looked very strong for the race win here this weekend, alongside him on the front row of the grid. After endless meetings and toing and froing, and nobody really grasping the nettle and taking an overview and saying, look, we have a responsibility here to the public at large around the world. Let's put a race on regardless. We ended up with a situation where all the Michelin teams were demanding a chicane be placed on that high-speed corner. The FIA, the governing body of the sport, refused to do so, and so all the Michelin teams came in at the end of the formation lap and didn't take the start of the race. Ted Kravitz is down in the pits.
Yes, and Sir Frank Williams has actually called another meeting of the Michelin team bosses. In there are representatives, team boss of Toyota, Peter Sauber, Ron Dennis, Flavio Briatore, Christian Horner of Red Bull, and Nick Fry of BAR. They're all sitting around a table in the Williams hospitality area. And God knows what they're talking about, really. I mean, where do we go from here? What will happen with the Michelin situation? A lot of people down here, James, by the way, talking about what this means for Michelin and a single tyre formula. Of course, the FIA released some skeleton rules for the new 2008 championship, and that did include a single tyre supplier. A lot of people down here talking about whether this is the first step on the road to that.
No problem.
Yes, well, they may as well sit down and talk about it. It's not often they're all in the same place together with time to spare, but it'll be primarily on the agenda damage limitation from this weekend for Michelin, for Formula One. Actions and reactions they're going to take this week, because for sure there will be plenty of mudslinging going on, I think, through this coming week between the governing body and Michelin and the teams. So there'll be an agenda going on in there. They'll not just be sitting around twiddling their thumbs saying what a bad day it is. There'll absolutely be a very clear message they're going to want to go home with from this weekend, and synchronise their watches, really make sure they're all on the same hymn sheet as they head back to Europe. I think there's some adrenaline beginning to, some juices beginning to flow between the 2 Ferrari drivers. They're way down in the 1:12 now, more the kind of pace we were expecting. Surely they've knocked the revs back to save their engines anyway, but as I said earlier on, Barrichello wants the 10 points, so does Michael Schumacher. It will launch both of them, either of them, straight into a championship contending position. So Michael's not going to want to give up 2 of those, that's for sure. I think we'll still see some solid racing between these 2 Ferraris as we get towards the end of the Grand Prix. I saw a no radio sign out for Barrichello. Whether that means his radio's gone or whether that means they don't want him talking on the radio because we're picking it up here in the commentary box, I don't know. It's being transmitted around the world. Barrichello is a 10th down on this lap to Michael Schumacher in the first sector. And as I say, I think they're now beginning to push harder.
Louise Goodman is down in the Red Bull garage.
Yeah, I'm here with Darren Nichols, who's the chief mechanic of Red Bull. And Darren, you, like everybody involved in Formula One, you put in long hours, you're very passionate about the sport. What do you and all the guys in the garage think about this?
It's obviously very frustrating. We've been here most of a week now. So obviously there's a lot of hard work goes into the preparation of it. And then obviously through circumstances outside our control, Michelin haven't got the full confidence in the tyres that they've provided with us for here. So all the team principals have got together and come up with a decision that, unfortunate for us, we've just got to go along with it.
Presumably you guys, you psych yourselves up, you're on a high prior to the start of the race. Are you all feeling a bit flat now?
It's obviously, the primary reason we're here is to actually go racing, same as the drivers. So the drivers are obviously frustrated by, events that have unfolded, so, and we just go along with that. And there's not a lot we can do, so ultimately at the end of the day, safety's got to be paramount, and, nobody wants to see anybody get hurt, so it's just one of those unfortunate things. Just feel sorry for the big crowd that's turned up today.
Presumably when you get home, your mates down at the pub are going to be asking you about this. How would you explain it to them?
It's very difficult. I mean, obviously people sitting at home on their sofas, it's very difficult for them to understand the consequences, potential consequences of something when it could go wrong. So it's very difficult. You just got to try and say, look, for safety reasons, we couldn't compete. People will have their own opinions and their own views on it, as I'm sure everybody in the pit lane has as well. So it's one of those things, decisions being made, all teams have agreed to do it, so we've just got to go along with that, I'm afraid.
Thanks for talking to us, Darren. We'll let you get on with the pack-up.
Thank you.
It's Chief Mechanic of Red Bull Racing there, giving us an insight into how hard they've worked. They came straight from Montreal. They flew down here and worked on the cars. They arrived here on Monday. As you said, we've been here all week. A lot of preparation goes into this. It's a huge roadshow, the Formula One roadshow, and well, today it looks a bit farcical, doesn't it? Frisacker then diving into the pits. He is the fifth man on track. He was, and teammate Christian Albers was just under half a minute behind him. A little bit of problems getting the refueling hose on there onto Frisacker's car. This is being a very long stop. This will hand the fifth place back to Albers. And this is really going to be Minardi's only chance to score points, I think, this season. Same for Jordan in many ways. They really have dropped off the back, both of these teams in Formula One this year. The performance of everybody else has gone up so much. It's been leaving Jordan and Minardi behind, so it's a huge payday for them. But we've already heard from Paul Stoddart that he didn't want to take part in the race with his Minardi team. He wanted to stand firm with the Michelin teams in demanding a chicane, but he says that Jordan broke their promise and insisted that they were going to race and go for the points here today, and that gave him no choice but to race as well, because he couldn't afford to give them an opportunity to get so far ahead of him in the World Championship. We will find out, hopefully, the truth of that situation, exactly who's telling the truth there, but certainly it's another aspect that's deeply regrettable of what is a completely regrettable situation. And you have to look forward from here, Martin, I think, on two counts. The first one is from Michelin's point of view. We've talked a little bit about it. Obviously, they've made a terrible mistake here. They're enormous embarrassment on a corporate level around the world. What could be worse than to create this farce that we see here today? What's their future in Formula One going to be like at a time when all the teams are finally saying, look, if we really want to control costs and speeds in Formula One, we need to have a single tyre supplier. So it really has played, I think, into the hands of those who have been looking for that in Formula One. You can't really argue, can you? Carter Cahan diving into the pits, and you can see there's still most of the 120,000 crowd here today is still in the grandstands. Below me, a number of them still walking about and having conversations, trying to understand what's going on here today as Carter Cahan pits. And let's hear some more from them.
They say the United States doesn't like Formula One. We put 200,000 people in the stands. It makes no sense.
Tell Bernie
we're all leaving. Tell Bernie Eccleston we're out of here.
Europe that doesn't play in the United States. That's it.
Yes.
I think this is really unfortunate for Formula One racing in America. I don't think it's going to recover from this anytime soon.
This was my first time here. A little disappointed about the whole situation.
I don't follow racing that much, but this is a horrible experience for the first time around.
It's totally avoidable. All they had to do was declare force majeure and let the teams start from pit lane with proper tires. It's bull. I'd just like to thank all the Michelin teams for backing out of the race. I saved an entire 2 months' salary to visit Indianapolis. And I'd really like to appreciate all the Michelin teams because I wasted all my money to come here. Thank you.
Can't argue with any of that, Martin.
Not at all. They've spent a lot of money, a lot of time giving up their free time to come and watch a race. There is a race, but it's very thinned out. And it's really, let's hope they let the two Ferraris at least go and give us something to talk about for the rest of the afternoon.
Well, they are doing, Martin, because Michael Schumacher's just turned the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, 1:11.497.
Both of them. Early. We pulled you in early to stay clear of the blues with the Ferraris.
Yeah, I pulled him in. Just explained to Carter Cairn what happened on the pit stop. They wanted to keep him away from having any waved blue flags to tell him that the Ferraris were going to lap him. Schumacher then ups the pace to low to mid 1:11s. Barrichello responding, and it certainly looks as though those two are having a race. As Martin said, both of them want to get themselves into the championship hunt. 10 points for the win here, 8 for second place. They'll be hollow points in many ways, but nevertheless, they still count towards the World Championship. The only consolation for Fernando Alonso, I suppose, is that Kimi Raikkonen hasn't taken any points out of his championship lead. It's still 22 points then Alonso has over Raikkonen, as Montero, who looks set for a startling podium in his debut season in Formula One under extraordinary circumstances. He goes back out on track. There's Ross Brawn, technical director of Ferrari.
Let's look at the left rear of this Ferrari, because the left rear of Carter Cairn's Jordan was virtually bald. No tread left on it at all. That's kind of okay, that one. That's thinning out, but it is lap 49. Carter Cairn, as I say, had run out of grooves completely, which will give him quite a handful a little bit later on.
Well, Michael Schumacher had 2 more laps worth of fuel than Rubens Barrichello, who pits then on lap 49. So these 2 laps will be pretty important for Schumacher. He has to put the hammer down now. He was 3 seconds behind Barrichello before the Brazilian made his pit stop. So he's got 3 seconds to make up then, and he needs a pit stop equally good or faster than his teammate in order to retain the lead when he makes his stop in a couple of laps' time. Montero we saw making his stop. He managed to rejoin and looks set for a podium position. There he is, Portuguese driver in the Jordan. And there's his left rear tyre, which looks pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, plenty of meat left on that. No problem there then for Montero. This is Carter Cairn. Let's have a look at his tyres. Yeah, there's not much left on there at all, is there? The rubber gets smeared across the face and tends to fill the grooves up, but that one's looking very heavily worn too.
Certainly is. There's Schumacher then. This is the critical part of the race as far as the 2 Ferraris are concerned. He's about to come up behind one of the 2 Minardis to lap him. Hopefully, from his point of view, he'll be able to get through cleanly. This is the short back straight, where they hit 180 miles an hour before turning into turn 8 at around about 70 miles an hour. Still plenty of fans sitting on the bank there. You can see there's a golf course in the background here called Brickyard Crossing. So another leisure activity available here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which really has to be seen to be believed. It's a vast amphitheatre surrounded by these grey metal grandstands, covering a huge amount of space. As you can see, home of the Indianapolis 500, as into the pits dives Michael Schumacher at the end of lap 51.
Not playing around in that pit lane, James. That's quite a tricky one, because it's full speed on the way in, up against the wall. You've got to get it all slowed down by the line, and he definitely was not cruising in there. Ted is
Michael Schumacher into the ghost pit lane. There are a ring of blisters actually around the right rear Bridgestone tyre of Michael's car, but otherwise they're looking pretty good, Nick. A load of fuel, and he's out on his way in this meaningless American Grand Prix.
Well, here's Rubens Barrichello down the straight. Schumacher's up to speed. Who's going to get into the first corner first? It's going to be Barrichello. He chops his team leader, but Schumacher doesn't give him any space. And would you believe it? Are the only 2 competitive cars out there, and they almost took each other out of the American Grand Prix. I'd love to see a replay of that. I'm sure we'll get one soon. But Michael Schumacher is in the lead. That just shows you what a hard racer he is. He wasn't having any of it. You'd have to say, looking at it from the angle we were looking at it, that Barrichello had the corner, but Schumacher held his line and Barrichello ended up on the grass.
No showboating going on there. Barrichello will be seriously razzed about that. He was so upset that Michael overtook him on the last lap of the Grand Prix in Monaco. He thought he'd stay behind him. I don't really understand why he was upset, but he was after the Grand Prix, and he will not be comfortable with that either. You'd have to say Barrichello just had the edge, had the line into the corner. Michael would not yield at all.
Heavy stuff in a very heavy weekend for Formula One between the two Ferrari teammates. Albers in 5th place here, the leading Minardi runner. He rejoins his teammate Frisacker. Crosses the line now, so you can see that's a battle between the two Minardis now as Albers gets up to speed and Frisacker isn't going to be fast enough to pass him, so Albers retains 5th place, Frisacker 6th. Schumacher leading, Barrichello with 21 laps to go here at Indianapolis. Montero is 3rd for Jordan, ahead of Carter Cahan, 4th for Jordan, Albers and Frisacker. 6 runners started this race, 6 still going.
Barrichello heavily held up.
19 laps to go in the strangest Grand Prix in the 50-plus year history of this sport. There is the girlfriend of Christian Albers, the Dutch driver in the Minardi. He's currently in 5th place. There he is out on track with teammate Patrick Frisacker, the Austrian, in 6th. Michael Schumacher is leading the Grand Prix from Rubens Barrichello by 1.3 seconds. Thiago Montero is 3rd for Jordan. Carter Cahan 4th for Jordan as well. Only 6 runners in this race because the Michelin teams all withdrew after the parade lap. Their tyres not safe. They gave plenty of notice to the FIA, but the FIA refused to put a chicane in or make any modification to the track just because Michelin have brought the wrong tyres here this weekend. But it's certainly very close earlier on. Michael Schumacher had 2 laps more fuel than Barrichello. He was 7 seconds behind him after the first round of pit stops. He managed to make up the time, but when he made his stop, Martin, this is what happened.
Well,
they came out.
Both arrived at the same piece of tarmac at the same time, coming from different angles. Rubens losing his turn-in point, had to get back on the brakes. Michael already locking his right front too. They came so close to touching. Rubens making the common sense decision to go across the grass. He's now coming back with a vengeance. Here is the vision from Rubens' rear wing, and he really did have his nose ahead into the corner, but Michael took his apex line away, which he's entitled to do. And I think that just confirms now the competitive juices are flowing between these two cars. I often heard people say you only need 2 cars to make a good race, and as long as they're racing, we might still see some action.
Well, they've certainly raced here in the past. There's been controversy where Schumacher slowed on the line, you remember, to let Rubens Barrichello catch him up. He was looking for a formation finish, but he ended up giving the victory to Rubens Barrichello a couple of years ago. And then last year he nicked it off him by a better restart. There was nothing to choose between the two drivers all weekend, and Schumacher just pinched it from Barrichello, who'd led. But he was slightly more dopey behind the safety car on the restart, and Schumacher piled through. So just proving what a racer Michael Schumacher is. He was prepared to go toe-to-toe with his own teammate. And whilst the pit straight was a ghost town, the two Ferraris almost took each other out. And the funny thing is that there aren't too many precedents for this situation with so few runners in the field. But one of them is back in 1982, the famous San Marino Grand Prix, where the 2 Ferraris, ironically, again, contested the victory. On that day, Didier Pironi and Gilles Villeneuve, the great Gilles Villeneuve, father of Jacques, they had a deal that whichever of them got to the first corner first would win the race, and Pironi broke that deal. Villeneuve was absolutely furious and said he'd never speak to Pironi again. And, well, 2 weeks later, he crashed and died in the Belgian Grand Prix. And it seems ironic that the 2 Ferraris, once again, are the ones duking it out at the front of a low turnout race. Just 14 cars started that Grand Prix. Only 6 have started this one. Ted Kravitz, what can you tell us?
Well, James, I'm down deep within the heart of the Ferrari garage, and let me just paint you a picture. Mechanics are sitting around, feet up, talking to each other. Do you know what they look like? They look bored and they look miserable. These guys love racing. They work for the most famous name in Grand Prix racing. They've all got red racing blood pushing through their veins, and they take no joy down here of what's going on. But as they replayed that incident with Michael and Rubens, well, the arms just hit the air. It would happen like that, wouldn't it?
Well, I think you'll find there's an angry Rubens Barrichello in the second Ferrari there, and he certainly hauled Michael back, although Michael was slightly faster on the previous lap. So we'll get a feel there, although they're now back in the 113s, 114s, so it's, they're back into the pace of the Jordans. So quite clearly they're not anywhere near the ultimate potential of those cars at this stage of the Grand Prix.
Well, we've been hearing all kinds of points of view and opinion. We've heard from disgruntled fans. We've heard a little suggestion that this might be a difficult situation for Michelin going forward. Certainly the word going around the paddock this morning was that the FIA were thinking of having them up on a disrepute charge, bringing the sport into disrepute. If they feel that it's entirely their fault that we are in this position, then they will throw the book at them, and we'll see what that means for the long-term future of Michelin in Formula One. Certainly a tremendous tyre company that has served motorsport in general very well over the years, Le Mans and Formula One, but this is definitely the darkest day for them. Even though they knew on Friday that they were going to have problems, there was no way, it seems, to resolve them. But also from a confrontational point of view, you'd have to say that this has been coming for some time. The FIA, Ferrari and Bernie Ecclestone all signed an agreement for a new Concord agreement to go beyond 2008 in the context of the battle that's going on behind the scenes in Formula One. The manufacturers on the one hand, the big car manufacturers, Mercedes-Benz, Renault, BMW and the rest, versus the FIA and Bernie Ecclestone in terms of greater commercial revenues for the sport being shared more equally with the teams and more say in devising up the rules. Frank Williams, I remember at the beginning of the season back in February, Martin, going for lunch with him, and he said, believe me, you're going to see some big confrontations this year. You're going to see some things that will be bad for the sport because there's a big power struggle going on for the future and for control of this sport. And I feel that this today is where it reaches its apogee. This is lunacy of the highest order. And unfortunately, it's being played out before one of the biggest audiences, certainly in the Western world, on TV. This is prime time in Europe. And everybody here at the racetrack is pretty disgruntled by what they've seen. Is Formula One a sport or is it a business? I think today the answer would fall very much on the latter side. But Schumacher and Barrichello seem determined to make us think it is definitely still a sport.
Please, we'll bring 2 cars to finish. Just reducing the RPM and making sure we're on 50 easy. Not to break anything. Okay, thank you.
So to report to you back at home, the race is effectively over. They've been told to cruise to the finish. They're now back 2 seconds off the pace. Often Ferrari race to the second stop, and whoever's in the lead takes the lead. So that little shenanigans down into turn 1 was for real, was for the race, and Rubens now realises that's cost him 10 points. Michael Schumacher leads Rubens Barrichello at a very steady pace by half a second.
Welcome back to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 11 laps to go in this bizarre American Grand Prix, which only ever had 6 starters. This is one of them, Narain Karthikeyan. He's been in 4th place really all afternoon. Teammate Thiago Monteiro considerably faster than him here today. Half a second a lap quicker, in fact, throughout the Grand Prix. He's half a minute behind his teammate. Monteiro then, the Portuguese driver, heading for his first podium at the age of 28 in his debut season in Formula One. All of the Michelin teams did not take part in this Grand Prix. They pulled into the pit lane at the end of the parade lap because they felt that the tyres were unsafe. That was the advice of Michelin. They couldn't break that.
1 minute 15. That's fine. That'll see us to the end of the race.
Karthikeyan then being told what the target is, and one of the team owners, Sir Frank Williams, has been having a meeting during this Grand Prix with his fellow team owners using the Michelin tyres. He's now talking with Ted Kravitz.
Well, Frank, before we ask you what you decided or what you talked about in that meeting, just what would you like to say to all the fans watching at home?
It's a serious assault on Formula One. The teams on Michelin tyres were told unequivocally by their supplier that the supplier, namely Michelin, could not undertake to guarantee the safety of those tyres. There have been several incidents on Friday which have put a car on the wall. The teams felt totally unable to ask their drivers to risk safety and proceed to a race. We wanted a chicane, which is what the best solution would have been. The FIA refused to sanction a chicane. Really, really sadly, we could not race our cars. The tyres were not safe. Cars have landed in the wall.
You've been talking to all the other Michelin runners. What have you been talking about in that meeting?
Just a suitable press release.
Which will be issued after the race?
Any minute now, yes.
And Frank, you love racing. I love racing. We all love racing. What does this mean for Formula One as a future?
Well, Formula One's okay, just very damaged. very damaged, maybe irrevocably so, in North America. And the teams are very deeply unhappy about the situation, which, if we'd been listened to, would easily have been averted.
Thanks very much, Frank.
Always speaks with great clarity, doesn't he, Frank? And as we thought, the meeting would be all about positioning damage limitation from the team bosses of the Michelin-shod cars. As we're on the banking, the crucial banking there, turn 13, down into the pit straight. And I think my own question's now been answered about how they'll sort the running order out for the next Grand Prix, because it's based on the previous Grand Prix finishing order. Well, they all retired into the pits in grid order, and therefore Coulthard will have to be out first. He was the last of the Michelin runners on the grid. Trulli will be out just seventh towards the end, so he'll get a big advantage. Those that qualified well on Michelin tyres will now have an advantage in Manicourt in 2 weeks' time, and those that didn't will be going out absolutely first, because that's how they're showing on the scoreboard here, with Trulli in 7th place, being the first of the retirements at the end of the warm-up lap.
Well, it's been a poor day for Formula One, but let's just remind ourselves of why we love this sport. Let's ride on board with Patrick Friesacher here. No, let's not. We cut to Michael Schumacher. Lap 66 of 73. He's 2.5 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello. How did he get here? Well, he led him off the very thin grid, only 6 cars taking the start, and he led him away. At the first pit stop, he took 16.8 seconds because the team were slightly concerned about his left rear tyre. They wanted to have a really good look at it. That was 7 seconds longer than Rubens Barrichello's pit stop took. So that gave Barrichello a 7-second lead, which Schumacher was able to side through during the second stint. He also had 2 laps more fuel in the car than Barrichello. We heard that from Schumacher's race engineer, Chris Dyer, live here on ITV on the radio. And, well, when Schumacher came in for his second stop, he rejoined just as Barrichello came down the virtually empty pit straight. You can see the little computer they have that tells you who everybody is, where they are on the racetrack. That's part of how they decide when to make pit stops, when to feed the cars back out onto the racetrack. A very important device that for the race strategist Ross Brawn there on the pit wall. And as they piled into this first corner, with Schumacher coming out of the pit lane, they very nearly took each other off in what is a 2-horse race for the win. Barrichello having to take to the grass. He tried to go around the outside. Schumacher, as always, completely uncompromising and unyielding, gave him the hard shoulder. And poor old Barrichello once again is staring at the rear wing of his team leader. 7 times a world champion, 83 times a Grand Prix winner. And, well, even the Indian fans whose man Narendra Karthikeyan is running 4th are a bit disillusioned with what they've seen here this afternoon. We've heard from a lot of people. Louise has been working hard down there. She's now caught up with BAR Honda team principal Nick Fry.
Yes, Nick Fry has just walked out of the Williams office where all of the team principals have been gathered together preparing a statement. Nick, I wonder if you could give us the gist of what the statement says.
Yeah, the statement's firstly a humble apology. Now, really, we've been put in a very difficult position here. We've been advised by Michelin the tyres were unsafe to use. We've been working with Michelin over the weekend, and at about 6:30 this morning we were told that we couldn't use those tyres and we couldn't use an alternative tyre that was being investigated. So we were really left with no option but not to race. What we tried to do was to Michelin asked for a chicane to be installed in front of the bank part of the circuit, and we were all prepared to run with a Michelin with a chicane in place, even if we didn't score points or even if the Bridgestone runners were at the front of the grid. We just wanted to please the fans. Unfortunately, those requests were turned down. So we were really left with no alternative. We just could not send the drivers out on tyres that we were advised were unsafe.
Were there any other discussions held or decisions taken in that meeting as to where we go from here?
No, we really haven't got that far yet. I think that the main discussion is really about being sorry for the situation. We really couldn't do anything about it, so we can't run the tyres on the cars on the tyres that are provided. So
just to reiterate, can you just tell us again what's in this press release?
First thing is an apology to everyone. Secondly is just a simple chronology of the events with Michelin, telling us that the tyres are unsafe to use. Simple as that. Are you embarrassed? Very much so. No, we'd have loved to have run today, especially from our point of view. Jensen was towards the front of the grid, so we look good.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Yeah, things changed, don't they? In that I remember standing on the grid in Adelaide when it was pouring with rain, and it wouldn't have worked today. But it was absolutely absolutely pouring with rain. Senna wanted a race, Prost didn't. Most of the rest of us were unsure. Bernie Ecclestone walked down the grid and said, get in your car, the race is about to start. And that was pretty much how it worked in those days. But as I say, that wouldn't have worked. That strategy wouldn't have worked today because of this critical problem with the tyres and reliability in today's world, basically, James, isn't it?
I think that's absolutely a brilliant point, to be honest. I was talking earlier on about the 1982 San Marino Grand Prix. It was all part of the war between the English teams, led ironically by Bernie Ecclestone and Max Mosley, known as the FOCA teams, against Jean-Marie Balestre and the FISA teams, the manufacturers as it was in those days. And we had some strange things then. We had 14 cars in that race. There was another driver's strike in South Africa back in the late 1970s as well, but somehow that was a different world, and the world wasn't watching to the same extent as it is now, with hundreds of millions of people tuning in around the world, and the ticket prices weren't as high for punters travelling around to see races. We didn't have anything like the level of sponsorship involved, and even the manufacturers were not spending the kind of money they are. Toyota, for example, spending upwards of £250 million a year. That's the statement that's going out from the Minardi team about what's going on today. That's not necessarily the statement that Nick Fry was just referring to, and so it's a different world really from some of the things that happened in the past, the standoffs, and yet a lot of the faces down there, a lot of the people, Ecclestone, Ron Dennis and Frank Williams, they were around in those days. The world has definitely moved on a little bit, and somehow or other they weren't able to just find unison and find agreement when really the world was crying out for an agreement today.
Absolutely, it's not totally without precedent. We all went home from the Belgian Grand Prix in '85 because the track broke up. We had to abandon the race and went back and raced later in the year. As it happens in that season, we were in Dallas and the track was breaking up. I was already in hospital with smashed up legs by that time because I was one of the victims of the track breaking up. But there have been problems over the years of technical nature or weather. And back in Japan, we had last year we had the typhoon coming through that nearly stopped the race, didn't it? So it's not totally without precedent, but as I said at the beginning of the programme, this one they could have found a fix to somehow.
Oh, for sure. I mean, a track breaking up which can't be repaired is one thing, especially if you agree to come back. It's clear where the blame lies. Everybody deals with it. But this is a very strange situation. There was a competitive aspect to it as well, obviously, from Bridgestone's point of view. Why should they lose out when Michelin have made such a bad mistake? But clearly there would have been a big penalty on the Michelin side, whatever the result, whatever the outcome today. But for the sake of the show, for the sake of the image of Formula One worldwide, and all those of you who've stayed with us here on ITV to watch this bizarre motor race, which I'm sure we'll remember for a very long time for all the wrong reasons, I'm sure that a solution could have been come up with. It needed strong leadership, and it wasn't there on the day.
A lot of fans, we're talking about the fans that are leaving, but there's a humongous number of people still in all the grandstands around the circuit. Quite what their reaction's going to be at the end will be interesting to see, but don't imagine that it's a ghost town down there in the grandstands. You'll see from certain shots on the TV too. A lot of people still around here.
Probably Ferrari fans, the most of them, and I guess they take their victories whichever way they come. Here's Narain Karthikeyan. He's been outclassed today, the Indian driver, by his teammate Montero. Both 28 years old, both in their first year in Formula One. Karthikeyan making his way up through Formula 3 and recently Formula Nissan World Series as well. Montero, he raced over here in America in the Champ Car Series, and he's certainly shown a clean pair of heels to Karthikeyan here. He's going to get his first podium in only his 9th Grand Prix start, and although he'll always know it was under strange circumstances because the big names of Formula One like Trulli, Raikkonen, Button, Alonso, Montoya were not out on the racetrack on the day, nevertheless it's going to be his third place and a trophy in his cabinet, probably the only trophy he'll ever get. And well, you'd have to say that he did beat his teammate on the day. The crowd below us are moving towards the fence now to see the conclusion of this Grand Prix. The booing is rising in volume, and I think it will be certainly an evidence when we have the podium a little bit later on. There's Friessacher in 6th place. As you can see, just all six runners. We've had so far, dare I say it, 100% reliability in this Grand Prix, partly because only for short periods of it were most of the runners really going as fast as they possibly could. But certainly we had a race between Barrichello and Michael Schumacher. There's no doubt about that. And it very nearly put them both off the racetrack. Schumacher is on his last lap. Barrichello has backed off 3.5 seconds behind him. And this is going to be win number 84 of his career for Michael Schumacher. Just coming down the short back straight.
It's gone quite quickly, actually, hasn't it? It's amazing. It's the end of the race. It's been zooming past. And we did bet there's been more boring ones in the past from time to time when McLaren were absolutely dominating it and winning 15 out of 16 races or whatever it was. And when we used to settle in for the afternoon with one set of tyres and a full tank of gas. But anyway, Michael Schumacher then moving towards the end.
Indeed he is. There's been so much controversy in his career. Always he seems to be in the middle of it. This time not necessarily his fault. He once again wins a very controversial Grand Prix. And the Ferrari comes out of that turn 13, which caused the problems. Across the line goes Michael Schumacher to win the 6th and possibly last Grand Prix here at Indianapolis. Rubens Barrichello finishes second. Thiago Monteiro finishes a lap down in 3rd place to take a trophy home here. And here's the reaction of the crowd. A mixture of delight and sheer horror from the crowd. Certainly the Ferrari fans are pleased. Here's Carter Kayan in the Jordan. A 3 and 4 finish for the Jordan team. Across the line he goes, and then the 2 Minardis. Christian Albers is going to finish in 5th place, and Patrick Friesacher in 6th place.
If Michael does a victory leap on the podium, I'm personally going to go and punch him.
I don't think there's much chance of that. I don't suppose he'll want to go on the podium. He'll want to get out of here as quickly as possible. So 11 points, I make it, for the Jordan team here this afternoon. Certainly was worth their while. It'll be very interesting to see what exactly did happen in terms of the agreement regarding the chicane. It seems that Minardi were prepared to do it. And the 2 Minardis.
Thank you.
3rd, Carter Kayan 4th, Albers 5th, Friesacher 6th. And Raikkonen actually is 8th, so that's where he'll go out. I remind you again, picking up rubber.
Picking up rubber to put a kilo or 2 on the car because they run these very skinny. They have to be 600 kilograms, including the driver, when they're in Parc Fermé. But as they wear up the consumables such as brakes and fluids, the brake pads and discs, that is, and as the tyres wear down as well, they lose about 5 to 6 kilograms. The driver loses weight as well, which they have to factor in terms of obviously sweating inside the car. Not that I think the Ferrari drivers have sweated that much today. Barrichello kicking up the dust as he comes over the line to pick up his 8 World Championship points. And Michael waving at the crowd and then kind of, well, what can I do about it? Yeah, what they were talking about on the radio is that Raikkonen effectively, because he was the 2nd car in of those that elected not to take the start, that means he's effectively 8th and will run quite a long way into the qualifying session in Manicourt, which will give him or minimise his pain in terms of where he can probably start on the grid next time round.
Yeah, the advantage of that obviously is the winner of the previous Grand Prix goes last, and tracks generally, because we have single lap qualifying in Formula 1, the first car out, which in this case in France in 2 weeks' time is going to be David Coulthard, will encounter a track that's considerably slower with dust and bits and pieces on it than the last car out. Tracks generally clear up and get faster by about 0.8 to a second a lap, so it's quite a big advantage for them. Down at Jordan is Louise Goodman.
Yes, I'm here with Colin Collins, the boss of the Jordan team. Colin, congratulations, I suppose, are in order, but how are you feeling about this podium finish and this large points haul that you've got today?
Well, I think the team did a good job. Of course, the situation is not pleasant, but I mean, we are not responsible for Michelin and for the other teams. I mean, they are not stopping races when we have tyre problems, so that's racing.
Will you be able to enjoy this podium finish as much as you would under normal circumstances?
I'm a realistic person, and I will still be a realistic person, and we are looking forward to our new car for the next race, and then we will see. I mean, the times we overlap Minardi, we are ahead by far of Minardi, because Mr. Stoddard is always practicing big marketing. So that's the case. I cannot change it. That's it.
Thanks very much.
It puts BAR to the back of the 10 teams with 0 points. And of course what this does is gives them a payback next year. They'll get more travel money in next year with these points for Minardi and Jordan, so financially it does help them significantly.
Just listen to this. Montero celebrates. Indianapolis crowd isn't enjoying it. We'll be back for the podium in a minute. The reaction says it all from the crowd in Indianapolis. We've had a 6-horse race here this afternoon. Michael Schumacher has won his 84th career victory, the 65th of his career with Ferrari, and his first of 2005. It puts him in the championship hunt, as it does Rubens Barrichello, who finished second. The crowd here don't like it. The Michelin teams didn't take part here this afternoon. It's been the greatest farce pretty much in the history of Formula One. This man is happy enough. He gets his first podium in Formula One, Jordan's first podium since 2003 Brazil with Fisichella, but what an empty experience for everybody in Formula One.
I feel sorry for Michael and Rubens up there, actually. Kind of what have they done, really? They're not the decision makers in the Ferrari team. They've been told to go and race, they've raced. And the reception, the booing is not for those two, I don't believe. The booing is for the lack of action in the event.
Well, it was an illustration of how the teams in Formula One simply can't agree, even in the most extreme circumstances. The FIA didn't seem to want to help either. Formula One should be deeply ashamed of itself today. It lost all semblance of common sense here at Indianapolis. Pinch me. Did I really see this?
Sorry to say you did, James. Thanks to James and to Martin. Coronation Street is coming right up for you, by the way. More complications for Steve and Tracy. It's a soap opera work. Got a bit of a soap opera here as well. I feel a bit sorry for Montero up there celebrating away. I mean, his first podium should be a great moment in a driver's career, but all very flat, all very hollow.
Yeah, it's a shame for him, obviously, but he knows in the bottom of his heart that it wasn't a true race. And it's just a huge disappointment. I don't think anybody involved in Formula One is proud of today. You know, and the biggest problem we've got 1,000 miles away on the other coast of the US or nearby there is a NASCAR race going on, and there's 43 cars still running.
Absolutely unfair on the drivers to get the reception they did. One or two team members are apparently getting a bit of aggravation as they leave the Indianapolis circuit. You can sympathise but not condone that behaviour, I guess. But I mean, if we look to the race, I don't know how closely you watched it, to be quite honest, but there was one moment I suppose we might remember beyond this evening. Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, a bit of a tete-a-tete between the two.
Yeah, just a situation. Schumacher coming out the pit lane after a pit stop. Rubens comes around the outside of him. Rubens probably just a little bit deep on braking and just puts himself on the grass. You know, at the end of it all, that was the only piece of excitement throughout the duration of the race. You know, in some ways, what do you say, Jim? It was two Ferraris having a slight mishap and trying to share the same piece of road, but I don't think those guys are really battling it out today in any means.
With a very familiar result, 84th victory for Michael Schumacher. You saw his face at the end of it. He enjoyed it as much as you all did. We'll be right back to complete our coverage of the United States Grand Prix. In the land of Disney, this Mickey Mouse Grand Prix did count. And there it was. There's the top six for you, as we predicted, and we are not taking any great pride or pleasure out of that. Michael Schumacher, Barrichello, two Ferraris, Montero, first podium for Jordan, Karthikeyan, first points, the Indian driver, and Albers and Friesacher getting points for Minardi as well. And the Drivers' Championship now, well, Michael Schumacher moved up to within 3 points of Kimi Räikkönen, and Barrichello scores a few as well. A lot of fans here did not have a nice day, including one from Manchester.
We came all the way from Manchester hoping to see a great race, and because I'm a big Formula One fan, and to find out this has happened, it's been a terrible disappointment for me. And I've got to go so many thousand miles back to England not having seen a proper race. I'm a Ferrari fan, but I'm more a fan of the Grand Prix, and we haven't seen anything today. It's a shame.
This is a
You sympathise with them. I'm not sure they will get a refund, though.
I'm not sure they get a refund, but at the end of the day, you know, there was 20 cars presented on the grid, but only 6 of them run.
I suppose some compensation for you watching. At least you didn't pay money to see the United States Grand Prix. This fellow won it, Michael Schumacher.
Michael, obviously a difficult day. None of the Michelin runners competing after that first lap, after the formation lap. But nonetheless, you were out there, you were racing, and it looked pretty close between you and Rubens as you came out from your second pit stop there.
Yeah, very close. I'd say it was quite a race. The two of us we had going. There was only the two of us, and the team said, "Let's go and have fun," and that's what we had amongst us. Obviously, a bit of a strange Grand Prix. Not the right way to win my first one this year, but one of these out of 84 is not a big disaster anyway.
We saw some debris being thrown on the track, unfortunately. What were the track conditions like? And we saw your left rear tyre being examined quite closely in the first pit stop.
It was mainly bottles, a bit of beer, as far as I could smell, in the first corner. So, but conditions were okay, no problem.
Can you describe your emotions as the start approached? You presumably knew what the Michelin drivers were going to do or suspected what they were going to do. What was going on inside your head?
We didn't know exactly what they were going to do. We heard certain things, but we were simply concentrating on ourselves, honestly.
And a good team performance, reliability was there, and you won a Grand Prix again. You've broken that second longest losing streak you've had since '93.
Yeah, but, well, I mean, obviously with Rubens it was a close fight, but other than that, a bit odd Grand Prix.
Joyless winner there. We came here in 2000 to Indianapolis. We thought that F1 had found a permanent American home. You heard the fans' reaction there, Mark. Get out of here. This show stinks.
You know, at the end of the day for me, no matter what the situation for Michelin with a tyre problem, I think the FIA have to answer to something, because they're the governing body. They should have come in and made something happen yesterday, not on the run-up to the race. We should have been well prepared, and we weren't.
Do you think, as someone said to me, we'd have been better off not racing at all here rather than putting on a show like this?
That's a very difficult question to answer, Jim. At the end of the day, I still feel that there was enough time to get this situation clarified and also a solution for it, and it didn't happen.
Racing running through your blood just finally, Mark. In there, that must hurt you, what's happened here today.
It's an empty heart. It really is. And when you've been in Formula One for a period of time and you know everybody and you know how despondent they are at this moment in time, you know, it's a shameful event.
OK. Well, you've seen an F1 fiasco in peak time. Like David Coulthard, I feel sick and embarrassed to my stomach. Circumstances beyond our control. We can only say sorry. Good night.